Hi, folks. Today's episode brought to you by sunsetlakecbd.com. One of our favorite sponsors. Why? Because they are movement partners who have donated thousands, literally tens of thousands of dollars to strike relief funds, to food pantries, to Last Prisoner Project, to carceral reform, like I say, refugee resettlement, on and on and on. They engage in mutual aid up in Vermont. And they have great farming practices, integrated pest management, no pesticides. They grow great CBD and make great products that are all third-party tested. Things like tinctures to help you sleep, tinctures to help you calm down, salves to help your muscles that are achy. And in my case, it's the season. I start to use it for my eczema. That's off-label, but I'm sure they don't mind. Lotion as well. They have fudge and coffee. They have great CBD. And if you use the coupon code Left is Best, you get 20% off. So check it out. Oh, they also have smokables as well, like vapes and Keef and Bud. And Matt says Keef twice. Wonder why he focuses on that so much. Check it out. sunsetlakecbd.com. Use the coupon code Left is Best. It gets you 20% off. And now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day is Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, founder, editor, publisher of Zeteo, Mehdi Hasan will be here to look back on the week that was. Then later, Matt Lieb, host of Bad Hasbra and other sundry podcasts. Meanwhile, a Trump-appointed federal district judge in South Texas permanently bans Trump from using the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans who are in that detention center there, but it's a case that very well may be cited across the country. Michael Waltz out as a national security advisor, and Marco Rubio surprised he's in. Trump, meanwhile, attempts to revoke thousands of, Harvard's tax-exempt status, and he signs an EO cutting funding for NPR and PBS. Meanwhile, the Trump administration cancels $1 billion in grants to children's mental health. Trump's de minimis tariffs kick in, or I should say his de minimis tariffs kick in, slamming lower-income households. As a Trump official begins, as Trump officials begin hoarding in anticipation of supply shocks. Israel likely source of drone attack, which hit humanitarian aid flotilla headed to Gaza. Trump unveils budget proposal as House Republicans begin to flail on that reconciliation bill. And a U.S. judge finds Apple is violating its App Store reform orders. Refers the case to the Department of Justice. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is, Emma?
Casual Friday.
I'm super casual. I'm not in the office today. I'm only going to be here for the first hour because of Well, I've got to do something else. So
Yeah, I think that's that makes sense then. Thank you for that explanation.
no, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Let's get to it. Is that not a good explanation? I'm trying to.
No, no.
Oh, there we go. All right. It's weird. I'm not used to doing this here.
I just gotta say, you got built-in shelving. That's really nice. That's the thing I'm most envious about when I look at your apartment. That's the dream.
It looks much better on camera than it does.
Okay.
But with all that said, let's get to this. Mike Waltz is the first of, you want to say he's one of the casualties of, his own incompetence and stupidity. But I don't know that that's the case. He, of course, was appointed national security advisor. He was, they had to have a special election. They were hampered on the numbers of Republican congressmen they had, I'm sure there's one or two Republican congresswomen, congressmen that they had. And so it made it a rocky go for the Republicans at the beginning. Of course, it's not like they have gone on to pass any other legislation. And maybe we'll talk to Mehdi about what kind of difficulty they're having in starting to actually do the actual work of their reconciliation bill. But Michael Waltz summarily punted. I don't know if you played this yesterday, but the clip of him getting off Air Force, or I should say Marine One, which is the helicopter that flies Trump and his entourage to the airport, and then everybody gets on Air Force One, and he just keeps walking past the airplane.
Oh, no, we got to find that.
That's so beautiful.
Trump apparently brought him on the helicopter, and he's so nervous about firing people that he wants to make sure there's a limited amount of time. So I suspect as soon as they started to circle the airport, he drops down. But apparently no one else knew that Michael Waltz was going to be fired, not the least of which the person who was going to replace him, who also happens to be Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Here is how his spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, a AM talk radio host, former, here's how she found out that Waltz was fired and Rubio was hired.
Has just written on Truth Social that Mike Waltz is going to become the new U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
Well, there you
no
go. Fabulous.
And in addition to that, he says that in the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as national security advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Do you know how long he's going to be serving in both roles?
It is clear that I just heard this from you. This is the magic.
No heads up that this was coming?
I have some insights as to the potential of certain things that might happen. But when the president, and this of course is all presidential decisions, right? So I'm with the State Department. It is, as I think would be clear to all of you, I
really have to question how, and she says, like, I have insights into some things that might happen. If you're not on the list of people who are going to find out that Rubio is going to be the acting national security advisor, like, what's on the list? They
forgot to add her to the group chat. They added Tammy Baldwin instead or something like that, right?
Right. Or it's just
sucked in.
Oh, sorry. It's not loud enough, my board yet. Anyway, I gotta stop trying. Keep going, Sam.
She gets a little heads up on what's going to be for dessert in the commissary on Fridays, but she doesn't find out that her boss is going to be the acting national security advisor. But let's go back.
I'm with the State Department. It is, as I think would be clear to all of you, you don't want to get ahead of your skis and drawing conclusions or speculating about what may occur. And you can have a general sense of what's possible. And then you see that manifest usually. But I think the one thing I've learned is that things don't happen until the president says they're going to happen. So the fact that is, which was obviously Truth Social. Yeah. So that is the miracle of modern technology. And
obviously that was on Truth Social. Where would it be? Where else would it be? Why would there be any interim period where I, as the spokesperson for the new acting national security advisor, also the Secretary of State, why would there be any interim period where I would find this out before somebody read it on a shit posters account on Truth Social?
I mean, that's the beauty of being a part of the Trump administration. There's this like spontaneity. Anything can happen. You wake up one day and your boss could be now in an entirely new role as both acting national security advisor, acting administrator of USAID, Rubio is, and now, of course, his traditional role as Secretary of State. Like, they're understaffed overall as well.
Little Marco's working doubles.
Go to bed last night, wake up in the morning, your Timo thing cost 4 times what it did yesterday. Let's continue here. Just
certainly that I've learned is that things don't happen until the president says they're going to happen. So the fact that is, which was obviously Truth Social. Yeah, so that is the miracle of modern technology and the social media. So that is an exciting moment here. I think that, as I know Secretary Rubio, this is a man who, as I think you all know, has worn several hats from day one.
Several hats. He's actually wearing, I think, like 3 or 4 at this point. He's also head of USAID to the extent that it exists. So we are to believe, look, none of this happens. Nobody knows about this until Donald Trump gets on his phone and, posts on Truth Social. No one else knows about this. I mean, she is a top official in the government. If she doesn't know about it, nobody can know about it until it happens. That's just the way we roll here. Unless, of course, you're that lunatic who chained herself to Twitter, in which case you not only knew about it, you were responsible for it.
The other week when you were able to, basically put in some suggestions that President Trump fire the national security apparatus, and your input outweighed the national security advisor, Mike Waltz. Did you express any concerns to him about Mike Waltz?
My concern was, if Michael Waltz is the NSC director.
I just want people to understand how insane it is that we just got Tara Palmieri. I guess she used to be on ABC or something like that, but she's asking this question. Maybe after Trump won, people could have imagined this, but just imagine 10 years ago, you have someone, a former network reporter asking the question. You had some concerns about the national security team. And in fact, you went in and talked about this. Do you think that your signaling out these people was why these people are gone? And you flip to the other person talking, and it's Laura Loomer.
It's not like Henry Kissinger.
Right. It's like if
Laura Loomer, whose experience in foreign policy was protesting the 9/11 so-called 9/11 mosque. That is her experience in foreign policy.
Don't sell her short, Sam. She also was against Muslims driving Ubers and Lyfts. So
right, and then got banned from it. This is like if Kamala won and she brought in that too raw, too real influencer to advise her on what to do with Israel Palestine.
Suggestions that President Trump fire the national security apparatus, and your input outweighed the national security advisor, Mike Waltz. Did you express any concerns to him about Mike Waltz?
My concern was, well, if Michael Waltz is the NSC director and or the NSC advisor, and he is saying that he's personally vetting these individuals who have a history of anti-Trump remarks and anti-Trump associations, why would he be signing off on them? And then it reminded me of a video that I've saved in my phone for many years of Michael Waltz on video speaking out against President Trump when he first ran for president, accusing him of being against service members. And so, I was about to show this video to President Trump, and then Michael Waltz, walked into the Oval Office. I could play the video. It just makes me wonder.
So when you went to that meeting,
Play the video. Let's just play the video.
He essentially called anyone who was captured in combat a loser. It's something that I just personally can't stomach.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured.
Don't let Trump fool you. Look into his real record and stop Trump now.
He essentially called anybody captured in combat a loser. It's something that I just personally, can't stomach. So if you can't stomach it, why do you want to work for President Trump? If you can't stomach it, why do you want to work in the administration?
I mean, J.D. Vance called him Hitler.
I was going to say, I don't know if anybody's seen what Vance said or Marco Rubio said about, he called him I think Rubio called him a fascist. I mean, there's almost no one in the administration who didn't say these things of Trump. It was obviously something more than that, right? I mean, it was obviously just Laura Loomer's insight from a national security perspective. And so now we don't have a national security advisor. But
apparently Susie Wiles didn't like him either, but I gotta think, is that the thing that pushed Trump over the edge? Some mild criticism of him? I mean, maybe he
said what?
He's so degraded. Maybe he forgot about little Marco and JD Vance delivered him the bag. I don't know. I don't know why I'm trying to make sense of his mind. It's impossible.
He's insane.
Yeah.
It's sheer insanity. That's where we're at right now. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Mehdi Hasan, editor-in-chief and CEO of Zeteo News. But first, a couple of words from our sponsors. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the country? Thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers. I have been one for at least 10 years, way before they started sponsoring this program. I have purchased trees from them, plants from them, fig, apple, Korean pear, all sorts of the grass type of stuff. Houseplants, I'm not so good with. I literally, all my houseplants have died. But the beauty is that they have, it's spring, and now it's time to plant in your yard. They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees. I would check out the bloomerang if they still have any of those. Shrubs, so much more. Doesn't matter what plants you're interested in. Fast Growing Trees has you covered. You don't have to shove these things in the back of your Subaru, get dirt all over the place. Get a choice between 4 different varieties, 3 varieties of apples. No, they have so many different types of plants and trees. They also have an Alive and Thrive guarantee. It ensures that their plants arrive happy and healthy. They give you all the information you need to how to plant them. They got experts on there 24/7 that'll tell you, this is the growing zone you're in. This is the stuff that's going to do best. What kind of stuff do you want? You want shade? Then get one of these things. You want something that's ornamental? Then get one of these things. You don't have to have a green thumb. They help you with all the care, et cetera, anything that you need to know 24/7. Plus, they also got a resource center that has tips and advice from plant experts so that if you don't want to talk to somebody, you don't have to. Which, at different times is the way I feel. Fast Growing Trees has the best deals right now. Up to half off select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off your first purchase when using the code majority at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com. Use the code majority at checkout, fastgrowingtrees.com. code majority. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use majority to save today. Offers valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Also, sponsoring the program today, the way that I keep my info on when I'm online safe. A few decades ago, private citizens used to be largely that private. What's changed? The internet. Think about everything you browsed, searched for, watched, or tweeted. Now imagine that all your data is being crawled, collected, and aggregated by data brokers into a permanent public record. Your record. Well, having your private life exposed for others to see was once something that only celebrities like Emma and I worried about.
Yeah.
But in an era when everybody's online, everybody is a public figure. So I use ExpressVPN. I want to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Majority Report. And here's the deal. Visit expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 4 months free. One of the easiest ways for data brokers to track you is through your device unique IP address, which reveals information about your location as well. Well, with ExpressVPN, your IP address is hidden. Makes it much more difficult for data brokers to monitor, track, and monetize your private online activity. Also, with ExpressVPN, it encrypts 100% of your network traffic, which keeps your data safe from hackers when you're on public Wi-Fi. Works on all devices. It's super easy. One press of the button on your iPhone, on your laptop, your tablet, whatever, and you are encrypted. This is hugely important if you ever connect in any type of public area with Wi-Fi, or if you live in a building, or frankly, people driving around. Super important for security. That's why I use it, is to make sure that I never make the mistake of checking to check your bank account or your email. Even if you sign in for your email when you're on public Wi-Fi, if they find out that address, they can do all sorts of horrible things. So protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's EXPRESSVPN.com/majority. You can get an extra 4 months free. expressvpn.com/majority. All right, quick break. When we come back, Mehdi Hasan. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome back to the program Mehdi Hasan, editor-in-chief and CEO of Zeteo News, and a early happy birthday to Zeteo, Mehdi. It's been, I can't believe it's been a year, frankly, but I have to say, Zeteo has had, in my mind, I mean, at least in my consumption, but I think broadly speaking, such an impact so quickly, and it's really impressive what you've been able to do over there in such a short amount of time.
Yep.
So congratulations, particularly in this environment, but really in any type of media environment, it's been really incredibly impressive.
Thank you so much, Sam. That means a lot, especially coming from you. You were one of the early adopters of independent journalism and alternative media and standing up to quote unquote MSM. So I feel very honored to get that praise from you. We are a year old. And it's amazing that we managed to pull off a year. If you'd asked me a year ago, would we still be around a year from now? We're growing, we're expanding. We've got a big new documentary coming out next week. We're on a world tour, live city tour. We were in London. We're going to be in LA and Toronto, New York, Washington, D.C. So we're celebrating our year. But look, it's a tough time for the media right now. We have a president and a government that is openly anti-First Amendment, free speech, and the media. So, we're celebrating, but we're also cautious about the future.
Yeah. And speaking of that, President, I don't know. There seems to be some controversy, at least in my head, as to when the first 100 days is, but then I don't care. I mean, it really is just a made up, measure, but this is like a measure where everybody checks in. And, I don't know, broadly speaking, what's your sense of this first 100 days?
Hard to answer that question, because on the one hand, when Trump, as he said on ABC News, well, people voted for this. This is what they wanted. He's got a point. Like, he's done a lot of the stuff that he said he would do. He said he would do tariffs and go after China. He has done that. He said he would close the border and end the right to asylum. He's done that. He said he would go after journalists and he would go after higher education, and he's done all of that. Government bureaucrats. He's done that, right? Whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. Now, at the same time, it's been a crazy 100 days where he's just unrolled things that no one voted for, right? Not even his base. His base did not vote for a first quarter of negative growth or a prospect of a recession. They didn't vote for their 401ks being decimated. They didn't vote for threats of war with Denmark, Panama, and Iran. This was supposed to be the anti-war president. They didn't vote for a lot of this stuff. They certainly didn't vote for green card holders, permanent legal residents to be detained and almost deported, or U.S. citizen children, as we've seen, basically kidnapped and removed from their own country, a 4-year-old with cancer, as happened last week. So none of that was on the ballot box for sure. So look, the one thing, giving me some hope is that the American people have turned quite quickly against him, quicker than against any previous president in their 100 days. He's the most unpopular president at this point in the 100-day cycle. He's had the worst stock market performance for 100 days, going back to Richard Nixon. He's underwater, not just on the economy in terms of polling, which is an issue he led on, but on immigration too, which was supposed to be his secret weapon and the Democrats' Achilles heel. Not quite.
Well, yeah, those immigration numbers, that's news to some Democrats like Chuck Schumer, who would rather focus on the car tax that is really affecting the suburbanites that he so covets. Like, I mean, what has been your reaction, Mehdi, to seeing this? What'd you say, Sam?
Hell no.
Hell no. This split between the Democrats and, I mean, Slotkin, I would say, and Schumer are on this side of just kitchen table issues. They never identify what the kitchen table issues are. They just say we shouldn't be talking about trans people and immigration. But it appears that the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case in particular has hurt Donald Trump in polling just as much as inflation and cost of living and the tariffs, which we're now beginning to see the effects of. There was an article in CNN about how Trump last night allowed the de minimis exemption on goods under $800 to expire. And there was a stat in that nearly 50% of de minimis packages are shipped to the poorest counties in the entire country. That is going to they're going to start to feel those effects. But the immigration stuff, that's clearly a major part of what's driving his approval rating falling apart.
So, let's just take both of those issues. Very interesting, immigration and the economy, how Democrats approach, because he's underwater on both. And these are, I will remind your viewers, two issues he has consistently led on when he was in opposition, when he was in power. as frustrating as I find it, he's led on the economy, even though he has no economic policy to talk of. And yet, look at immigration, where, yes, he's doing, people love his border security, but Kilmar Abrego Garcia was the single most unpopular issue that the New York Times Siena poll found him on just a couple of weeks ago. And Democrats were saying, oh no, we should stay away from this. Republicans were like, it's an 80-20 issue. Democrats are on the wrong side. Yet Chris Van Hollen had the guts to go out there. Maxwell Frost went out there. Other Democrats made a song and dance. Peter Welch of Vermont went and visited Mohsen Madavi in prison before he was released this week, right? And there were other Democrats just cowering, crouching in that classic defensive posture saying, we can't win on this issue. These are unpopular people. Actually, turns out the American people are outraged when you tell them what is going on, when their rights and due process are being undermined and the Supreme Court 9-0 is being ignored. So Democrats can lead on that issue. The other issue, Emma, that you mentioned, which is, kitchen table issues, ironically, that's an issue where Democrats don't actually need to say much, right? Because you don't need Democrats to tell you that you're hurting or that prices are up. You can see that on your own. You don't actually need Democrats to do that much. Donald Trump's doing all the damage to himself. These are all self-inflicted wounds. He inherited a very strong economy with 2.4% growth in the last quarter of 2024, and now he gave us minus 0.3% in the first quarter of 2025. And then he says dumb shit like, I don't know if you saw him this week in the Oval Office saying, well, if they have $30, they can have $2 and they can pay a couple bucks more for it. First of all, who is Trump hanging out with other than Barron, who has $30, right? I have two kids. I have two kids. They do not have $30. And if they do, I'm outraged about it. I'm going to go double check, but I'm pretty sure I didn't buy them $30, certainly not in one go, for a couple of bucks more. So this is just this ridiculous stance that he's taken where he's completely out of touch with the American people and his own base on some of this stuff. So I actually think it's the reverse of the kind of slot consumer. I actually think the economy takes care of itself right now, and they should focus on the due process, the Supreme Court, the American citizens, children. By the way, the Republican Party claims to be the anti-child trafficking party. They are literally trafficking American citizen children out of this country to Honduras. Insane. A child with cancer.
I couldn't agree more, particularly about those, the two sequencing and how, on some level, what Van Hollen and Frost and et al. Have shown is that you can take an issue like this, and particularly when it's so egregious, and change that polling. That's the thing that Democrats seem to be allergic to. I don't know if it's a function of the consultant class or whatnot, but how they, there are, this is a target rich environment, as they say. Let's play this clip of Stephen Miller in the, I don't know where he was yesterday. It was a White House briefing room.
Yeah.
In this instance, he is Chiron or labeled the Homeland Security Advisor. He seems to be the advisor on just about everything with Donald Trump. He really does seem to be the number, really the number two guy. I'm sure there's 100%. Sort of some type of like Walz and he are, both seem to have access to the White House at any time of the day. I should say the Oval Office. Here is Stephen Miller.
Most of your papers never covered her story when it happened. To the extent that you covered it at all, it was because President Trump forced you to cover it by highlighting it repeatedly over and over again. He had to shame you into covering it. And each and every one of you that sides over and over again with these MS-13 terrorists, to the extent that you have the financial means to do so, you all choose to live in condos or homes or houses as far away from these kinds of gangbangers as you possibly can. If I offered any one of you a rent-free home with no taxes to pay in any of these gang neighborhoods, and I said your neighbors are MS-13 terrorists or Mexican mafia or Sinaloa cartel or Tren de Aragua, I couldn't pay you to live there. But yet you, with your coverage, are trying to force innocent Americans to have these people as their neighbors, and that one day their daughter may be abducted from their home and raped and murdered. So you're not going to get an ounce of sympathy from this administration or President Trump for the terrorists who've invaded our homes and our country.
You know what's amazing to me about, just aside from how sort of fascistic-y he is, but this whole thing where we have terrorist cells in the country, an invading army, and we haven't had one shootout yet with ICE officials and
So
these
true.
invading terrorists.
So true.
It's
What's
because of
going
the
on?
wokeness under Biden. They prevented that kind of thing from happening, right?
They took all the guns away. No, somebody said that recently. One of the many innocent people whose homes were raided recently said, what if I'd had a gun? These ICE people are turning up with no ID, their faces behind masks, grabbing people on the streets, grabbing people outside churches, grabbing people in courthouses. It is amazing that no one has actually pulled a gun in the United States of America. This is the Don't Tread on Me party, the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment folks, the stand your ground people in Florida, right? If somebody comes up to you in the street and just grabs you with no ID, why wouldn't you defend yourself by any means necessary? It's amazing. Thank God we've avoided that. But yes, as you point out, if these really were all gangbangers and terrorists, wouldn't they put up a fight when they're being deported rather than, for example, that horrifying video of the Turkish student in Massachusetts who's picked up by a group of masked men and is just screaming and crying because she's a young woman being pulled off the street in the middle of Ramadan, right? That is who they're pulling off the streets, these cowards in masks. So you're right. It is insane. Stephen Miller is a liar. He's a white supremacist. He's the worst kind of white supremacist. He's a Jewish white supremacist. His own family have disowned him, right? His Jewish family, his uncle famously wrote a piece saying, Stephen Miller, we all can't stand you and our family wouldn't be in the US if people had brought in the kind of immigration laws you want. When he talks about living in areas with gang members and terrorists, well, why don't they go find these areas? Because they don't seem to be able to find any Tren Aragua people. The people they sent to El Salvador, vast majority of them were not gang members or Tren Aragua. And by the way, a Trump judge in Texas just this week said there's no invasion. Like the whole premise of the Alien Enemies Act 1798 that Miller invoked is Miller's idea. He's the guy who talked about it in during the campaign, and they've now implemented it. Was that there is an invasion by a foreign power. No one believes that Tren Aragua is part of the Venezuelan government. U.S. intelligence internally told the State Department it's not part of the Venezuelan government. There is no invasion by any commonly understood definition of the term, certainly not a legal one. So a Trump judge has thrown out the idea of using the Alien Enemies Act. But look, Miller was a crazy, kooky gadfly working for Jeff Sessions on the Hill. He used to get ignored by other Republican staffers who thought he was a weirdo. And now, as you say, Sam, he's the second most powerful person in the White House. He's basically running all policy as deputy chief of staff. He's coming up with these ideas. He's filling Trump's head with nonsense, right? Trump's head is already filled with nonsense. But when you see Trump on ABC saying, they had MS-13 written on his knuckles, that came from Miller, surely. When he says, oh, my people told me that I won at the Supreme Court, not lost, that's Stephen Miller.
We saw him on camera, I think, making that argument in like some type of like press gaggle where he announces it and nobody
in the Oval Office.
It was just, in the Oval Office, and nobody says, well, wait a second, what are you talking about?
Why don't Democrats go big on Miller? Like, if I want to talk about messaging, if I'm a Democrat, I would do all my ad campaign around the real shadow president. This freak, just play ads of him speaking. No serious American, no independent voter, no moderate conservative looks at Stephen Miller and thinks that's a normal dude. And if you remember in the first term, SNL did that great parody ongoing about Steve Bannon being the real president and Donald Trump as Alec Baldwin sitting at the kiddie table. Trump went nuts and fired Bannon. I think they need to do the same thing with Miller, that Miller is the real president and Trump is just his puppet.
Well, I mean, I think, because in part too, I would say, is because Musk, who had been sort of the first lightning rod of the administration, seems to be stepping back because he's a special advisor, and also because he has, I think, completely effed up even the plan of his cohorts. I think it was, he was claiming that he had $150 billion worth of savings. This is not cuts, incidentally, savings that are projected in 2026. And some conservative think tank came out and said it's actually closer to like $5 billion. So we've gone from $2 trillion of fraud and waste to 1.5 down to 600 billion, down to $150 billion in savings, not fraud and waste, down to $5 billion. But in the meantime, he's wreaked complete havoc. Now, and I'm curious, from a
25 million people might die in the next 15 years, according to the Lancet, because of his cuts to USAID.
And I mean, let's also be clear in terms of like what the implications are going to be for things like NIH grants and research grants. I mean, this is stuff that's going to ripple through. This is like that, Bruce Lee kidney punch where 3 weeks later you die. and you don't realize. I mean, this is going to have ripple effects.
I agree.
But what do you make of the in there? Like, we're now going to about to, it seems to me, go into phase 2. If you had folks like Russell Vogt with the plan of Project 2025, which he had been developing over the past, like, really 3 or 4 years, and all of the Schedule F stuff that they even attempted to do at the end of the first Trump administration, he was unable in many respects to implement that at first because DOGE got in the way.
Yeah.
The DOGE process has been basically just annihilated by the courts. And now we're about to go into it seems to me, the reduction in force process that Vogt had been working on, that I imagine is a lot more thought out in terms of like where legal challenges would come from.
Yes, I agree with that. I think Russell Vogt is a much smarter and more dangerous enemy of liberalism and social democracy and the government apparatus as we know it. He has been planning it for years. He is a smart guy. He was head of Office of Management and Budget in the first term. He led he was one of the brains behind Project 2025. He's caught on camera talking about how they've tested stuff with the courts, right down to even putting military on the streets. I mean, Russ Vogt is the guy who was on tape talking about, well, we've advised President Trump what he could do with the military. So it is much more dangerous than this ridiculous Elon Musk, who has screwed up both his Doge and Tesla, by the way, while he's been busy doing Doge. His own Tesla board, according to the Wall Street Journal, were trying to headhunt a replacement for him. You've got all these ridiculous kids he employed. I don't know if you saw Jesse Waters on Fox did a puff piece last night where they all sat around the table with Big Balls or whatever his name is and all the rest of these children and bragged about how much they've done. They've done nothing, as you just pointed out with the numbers. The whole thing is a ruse, is a distraction. Musk turned up at the cabinet wearing 2 hats to make a joke about how many hats he has. He's literally the unfunniest man I've ever come across in my adult life. Like, whatever you think about Donald Trump, I will admit right here on live TV, I've laughed occasionally when Donald Trump has said things, right? I've never laughed or smiled at anything Elon Musk has ever said. He's so desperate to be the cool kid, to get the affection, he's got none of it. He's just a complete charisma-free, unfunny narcissist.
He did legalize comedy again, though, so that was good. We got
until he then shadow banned all the accounts who criticized him. Just on the Doge thing, by the way, like, it's so important to point out, to go back to your first question about the 100 days. Jonathan Shea wrote a piece for The Atlantic in which he made the very valid point that compared to FDR, who invented the whole 100-day concept and did so much legislating in the first 100 days, Trump has passed no real bills or acts of any consequence. He's passed fewer laws than he passed in his own first 100 days in 2017. But that's not really the point, right? Trump is not about legislating. He's about executive ordering. He's about doging. He's about court ignoring. And in that sense, the first 100 days have been hugely consequential. They have been hugely destructive. And you make a very valid point. Can you undo some of the stuff, the damage they've done to our scientific base, our public health, the NIH? Maybe that can't be undone at this point. The damage they've done to USAID, I doubt the Democrats are going to come back and rebuild our aid budget from scratch. I wish, but I doubt they'll do that. So some of the damage that they're doing, they know they've moved that Overton window very quickly in the 100 days to a point where even if they lose the next election, if we have a free and fair election, is the next Democratic president going to come in and make one of his priorities rebuilding some of these kind of unsexy, unfashionable areas of public life that they have just decimated? And I think that's what they've cynically realized to be true.
It's much easier to break than it is to build. Yes. And this is how Republicans have operated. They're just doing it at an even more breakneck speed. And it's also an example of how liberalism has been incapable of responding to fascism, because oftentimes liberalism is about maintaining our institutions. And when you get a Republican that comes in and breaks it, the baseline of maintenance keeps going down. And then we're at this like complete corroded period where you can have fascists take advantage of it. And there's this eugenicist thrust that is perhaps the most disturbing piece of this administration. When you mentioned how many people are going to die because with those USAID cuts, the RFK Jr. and the gutting of the research funding also has eugenicist aims domestically. towards people with disabilities and disease, where RFK Jr. will have this like faux sympathy towards those kinds of people. But you look just like it's very right underneath the surface, the disgust for people with autism, the disgust for people with disabilities, and the idea that like if you can't solve it with your personal consumption choices and buy my supplements, then it's survival of the fittest. And that's part of what I think the ramifications are going to be over the next 4 years and beyond.
I mean, Donald Trump has talked about his obsession with genes, right? That's on the record for many, many, many years. He's obsessed with good genes and his own genes, which I don't think are so good. It's so funny when you talk about survival of the fittest, and yet the MAGA base is a very unfit, very ill base. If you look at any of the areas where Trump is strongest, they are places that are beset by obesity and diabetes and ill health and lack of access to healthcare. So it's it's like COVID, Emma, all over again, where, the study showed that disproportionately Republican voters died at disproportionately higher rates than Democratic voters because they believed the bullshit about not taking vaccines, not wearing masks, not socially distancing. So they were killing off parts of their own base, which was insane, but they did it. So yes, I mean, look, they don't give a shit. I mean, the fundamental premise of everything Donald Trump does is he does not give a shit. That is the framing of all our conversations. He only cares about himself. His family are doing a new crypto deal, I believe, in the United Arab Emirates. They're doing another deal in Qatar. They're doing deals all over the place. He's about enriching himself, keeping himself out of prison, and taking revenge against his enemies. I mean, there's no 4D chess here. Let's just be clear about that. Not from a Trump perspective. Forget Russ vote. I'm talking about Trump.
I mean, on some level, though, because you make the last night the de minimis tariffs kicked back in from China that is going to hit low income people the most. I think it was like Emma had said earlier, it was like, I don't know, 45% of those.
48%. Yeah.
Low income people, and then about 22% higher income. But there's havoc is being wreaked in the economy. I mean, it's just no other way to say it. Like, there's no, if you're, it's all anecdotal at this point, except for, of course, the negative growth, which is clear. That shows people panicking, buying early. The story that comes out today in Rolling Stone about the White House, people working there are hoarding toilet paper because they're anticipating potential supply shocks. We'll have a better sense of this, I think, in the next 2 to 6 weeks. But this is where things could go really sideways. I mean, we have the first person fired from the administration. Granted, it was because Laura Loomer said so, but there also must be some pressure there too. So it feels like we may be on the precipice of just, which is going to make folks like Russell Vogt be much more aggressive. It seems to me like a cornered rat type of mentality.
To borrow a line from the late Donald Rumsfeld, it's a known unknown, right? We know that there's some shit coming down the track, especially in relation to the economy, because he's done such crazy stuff. We don't quite know what it is. We don't know what the repercussions will be and how they'll play out. I mean, Donald Trump could be remembered as the first president, not just to be impeached twice, but to deprive of us toilet paper twice. And that would be quite a legendary achievement for himself if that's what we end up with, panic buying and empty shelves. Look, it's going to be fascinating to see a kind of Marie Antoinette, let them eat bread, let them buy $2, not 30, as people panic buy over, I don't know, 4th of July weekend, or when we hit Christmas and there are no toys because every toy company says they're going to go bust. It'll be fascinating to see how Trump, the man who lives in a golden apartment in New York, how he reacts to this kind of self-inflicted recession. Now, they're going to blame Biden. He's already said that even Q2 of growth, he's going to blame on Joe Biden, which is amazing because a year ago, when the stock market was doing very well, he said it's my stock market. It's a Trump stock market, not Biden. But when he's actually president and the stock market's collapsing, it's Biden's stock market. So I think even the thickest members, the dumbest members of the MAGA cult, surely will see through that at some point. Maybe I'm being crazy, but you're right. There is a lot of stuff coming down the track at home and abroad. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. You saw the Hegseth tweet this week about attacking Iran. I mean, this was supposed to be the anti-war president, the guy who went to Michigan and said, don't vote for Harris and Cheney. They'll kill lots of Muslims. I'm the anti-war guy. And here he is threatening Iran to be bombed like it's never been bombed before. The Mike Waltz shift was supposed to be, the neocon guy. But look, guess who's running all foreign policy now in the administration? Marco Rubio I think he's got like 4 jobs right now: Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, acting administrative USAID, and National Archivist. So this is Rubio, the guy who once mocked Donald Trump's manhood, called him a con man. He is now basically the guy lumped with all this, and we know that Rubio is a hawk.
Yep. 100%. I mean, this is, I don't know. This is, I think, an administration where, day 200 is going to be far more telling, I think, than where we are now. And I think it's going to go in a couple of different directions. The national economy may go south, but Trump's family economy, I think, is going to do quite well. I think this is going to be we're going to see like the mentality of everybody get into the getaway car, because I think they're going to realize by next fall, they're going to lose the House. By all accounts.
But I think that the cornered rat line that you used is an important one, because too often on the left, there is this thought that when the economy goes badly, when people are suffering, they will turn towards the left. That was the theory after the financial crash in 2008. In fact, we saw over the next decade the far right benefit across the Western world. And that is a slight problem, right, for the left, especially the non-populist left. And I think that is, if we get into a severe recession now, you could be like, oh, well, Democrats will benefit. Oh, they'll win the midterms. Actually, you could see Trump doubling down on all sorts of vile messaging that enables him to deal with economic repercussions. The Republicans are the masters of culture wars, of distraction from economic issues. You saw the story this week that they're looking at options to try and redefine gang members in the U.S. as enemy combatants who can be detained in the U.S. without due process. Forget sending them to El Salvador. You will see more and more of those trial balloons floated in terms of civil liberties, in terms of restricting the right to protest, in terms of the government having the ability to round up people. You saw Sebastian Gorka, the director of national counterterrorism at the White House, ludicrous individual. He did an interview recently where he said, if you are speaking out in favor of Hamas, we could charge you with aiding and abetting terrorism. Like, this is a very slippery slope from picking up pro-Palestinian foreign students to going after American citizens as terrorists. I mean, this is George Bush, Dick Cheney, John Ashcroft on steroids.
Yep.
Mehdi Hasan, Editor-in-Chief, CEO of Zeteo News. Again, congratulations for the work you guys are doing there. We'll, of course, link to that, and folks should check out all the work at Zeteo. Really incredible achievement, Mehdi, and appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks so much, Mehdi.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks. Emma's going to take over from here. Say hi to Matt for me.
I will.
I don't think I've ever been around when Matt Lieb has come on.
Well, it's too many Jews. The quota goes over.
Exactly. We have to push one out when the next one comes in. All right, folks, I'll see you on Monday. Emma, back to you.
All right, folks. Yes. Happy weekend to Sam. Let's read some IMs.
Well, I just can't even.
Sexually confused by older Jewish women said, did you guys see the New York Magazine piece about John Fetterman? Yes, we did. We are hopefully going to be talking about that with Matt in just a second. He's going to be joining us soon. We'll read some IMs to that up to that point. Dobby Wan, how much amphetamine do you think Stephen Miller takes before his press appearances? Where do I get the free house? That sounds awesome, but I'd be concerned about police raids for no reason. I have no idea. He kind of has the crazy, like, I don't get the sense that he's jacked up on anything except fascism.
Yeah, he looks like, he reminds me of that kid who filmed himself talking about how much women don't get him and then shot up a school. Like, that's the energy he has.
Exactly.
It's not party drug energy.
Right. Fabulash, Eric Prince, Blackwater CEO, is the brainchild of El Salvador prisons. As one of the largest military contractors, no wonder Slock, an ex-CIA agent, is trying to distract from the deportations. I think that's a very astute point. But we do have Matt, so let's just take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Matt Lieb. We are back, and we are joined by our friend Matt Lieb, and it's also his birthday, so everybody's got to wish him a happy birthday right away.
Do it. Chat. Put hearts in the chat if you want to wish me a happy birthday or say happy birthday.
The stand-up comedian, host of podcasts Bad Hasbara and Pod Yourself a Gun, which has now become
Mad Yourself a Man.
Mad Yourself a Man.
It is a Madman podcast.
Right.
It used to be a Sopranos podcast.
Right.
Now, but if you want to find it, you still have to put in Pod Yourself into the. We've made our podcast impossible to find.
Yep.
Deep
web. Deep web. Only really like dedicated, listeners of podcasts can find our podcast about Mad Men. But once you find it, you will enjoy it. You were on it, Emma.
I was on it. I'm a big Mad Men fan, and I know, yes, I have a coastal elite sensibilities, but I do have to say it's my favorite show of all time. So
it's a great show. It's a great show. I think anyone from anywhere can love it. That's what I think.
I mean, especially if, like Don, you have daddy issues or something like that. That seems. I'm not saying that's me, but some people.
No, not me either.
No,
not me. No.
Sopranos is for mommy issues. The
Mad Men for daddy issues.
Yep, you can get both.
The Wire. We also did The Wire, and that's for societal issues.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's about society.
That was really deep.
It's a very deep show. If you're into deepness, listen to that. Or if you're into Israel.
If you love Israel,
if you're a big fan of Israel.
You should listen to Matt's show. Go to stand up, see your stand up next Wednesday.
Yes. Next Wednesday, this Wednesday coming up, May 7th, Cobb's Comedy Club. Myself and Francesca Fiorentini, who is my wife, Borat voice, my wife, and we're going to be co-headlining Cobb's, and it's going to be really fun. Get your tickets now before it's too late. Not that it'll sell out, but
a link to that in don't sell yourself short. We'll put a link to that in the description if people want to check it out, and we'll plug it towards the end as well. But
what city is Cobb's in?
Ooh.
It's in San Francisco. It's San Francisco, California, which is on the West Coast. So if you are anywhere on the West Coast, it's just a few hours drive, or it's right next to you if you live in San Francisco. Please come.
Hot tip.
It's my birthday. You
Do a nice thing.
Do a nice thing for yourself.
So big story this morning about our favorite. I don't know, my top pick for the live action Shrek, John Fetterman.
Yes, my favorite professional wrestler turned senator. I don't know what he did before he was a senator. I just assumed he was a professional wrestler. And then I was told, no, he's just some Harvard guy.
Yeah, just a Harvard guy who we now lessons learned, perhaps if we have candidates who have a history of like chasing down somebody with a gun and perhaps it's racially motivated, that sometimes those aren't one-offs. Sometimes those situations can't be explained.
Yeah, egg on my face.
Right.
I looked at him and I was just like, yeah, that's what we need. We need, just a 6'8" white guy who just had a stroke to finally, get that MAGA crowd to start, seeing some sense, and then he just started doing MAGA talking points. I was like, oh, that actually makes more sense. That makes more sense that he is just that guy.
And what's fun about Fetterman is that all of the usual suspects had decided preemptively, well, maybe not preemptively, but once he started going down the Zionism is the most important thing ever to me, down that road, there was a class of Democrats that said, this is the kind of populist that Democrats
Matt Iglesias.
Yeah.
This is the kind of populist, the one who's going to take really unpopular positions in both his party and, I think more so it's happening more and more in the Republican Party.
Well, Iglesias is a popularist, right? So he always says you got to just respond to the polling as a Democrat, but they ignore things like Israel, where a majority of Democrats, it's not close, now have negative feelings about it. And also ignores the fact that you can have agency over public opinion as a politician by using the bully pulpit. That's kind of important.
That's like the whole point. That's why it's to be a leader is when you lead, right?
Right.
Isn't that the whole thing?
They don't like doing politics. They're resentful of it. But it was these people said this like 2 years after they had declared Eric Adams is the future of the tough on crime Democrat.
Can we maybe cut like they care about what's popular with donors? That's where populism comes from.
Right.
I was, right. Go ahead.
I mean, sure, but also, what's popular with donors and other people who are sucking on the teat of those donors. And I think you forget that that's a class of people.
Yeah. Stop ignoring them.
Don't erase them.
Don't erase them. Those are workers. Those are part of the revolution, is the people who are going to be actively serving the moneyed class.
Would you hide them? Would you hide them?
Would you hide all of the personal assistants of the oligarchy? I would.
I would. And so that's how, we're on the right side of history here. So Fetterman was sitting. All right, like this article's kind of sad. Spoiler alert: he's lost his mind after having a stroke. But this is someone who was saw him.
The Summer Mob at SUMERMOB on Twitter or on Instagram.
Good job, Summer Mob. Spotted Fetterman in public the other day, and this is how that went down.
Senator, do you still feel that Israel has the right to kill and kill and kill people? You still think Israel has a right to defend itself still? When is enough, Senator?
I don't know why you're harassing me.
That's not harassment. You're a senator, right?
I saw you coming and I assumed you were going to come over.
I mean, you work for the people, right? You're in these halls for the people.
I'm just sitting here on a bench.
Right. And my people are being slaughtered because of your votes and the money that you sent to Israel and your complicity in genocide. You have nothing to say about that? Over 100,000 Palestinians have been slaughtered. How do you sleep at night, Senator?
We're not adding those crickets.
Seriously, how do you sleep at night? Do you not see the videos and the just the children that are being slaughtered out there?
I don't have anything to say.
You don't have anything to say? Of course not.
I'm just sitting on a bench.
Because AIPAC pays you way too much money to say anything, to be a human being. Yeah. What a shame, what a shame. You do not deserve the position that you have at all. Shame on you for being complicit in genocide. Shame on you.
Agreed.
That's how you do it.
100%. This should be the standard for anyone who's in a position of power being in public. The standard should be you go up to them and tell them what they, what they're supporting. And then ask for an explanation. The idea that he's like, I just came out here in an open field to sit on bench. Like I do. Love bench. Love to sit and think my thoughts. What are they about? I think blood and soil. Doesn't matter what my thoughts are. I'm thinking them, and I would like to be alone with my thoughts. The idea that is like, and now you're harassing me in this position where I'm literally sitting here in public being like, it looks like he's waiting for a meeting. He looks like he's going to feed some birds and tell them to, start funding the IDF.
Right. Yeah. It also looks like, I don't know, it's almost like the Forrest Gump scene of him sitting on the bench, but instead Fetterman's imagining the woman asking him questions about the box of chocolates.
That's amazing. Just sitting there waiting for a bus. This bus is gonna take me to Jerusalem. We need to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and build the third temple.
Just on a loop.
Can I just get really remedial for folks for a second? That's a senator of our nation here.
Yeah.
The Senate is one of our bodies of Congress. It's supposed to be the greatest deliberative body on earth. Does anyone watching this think that they can't deliberate better than that guy sitting on that bench?
It's just.
Yeah. It's
okay.
wild.
So the problem is that I want to. this article that just came out this morning in New York Magazine is expansive about John Fetterman. So great reporting by Ben Terrace of New York Magazine.
Yeah.
I want to be sympathetic because, as I'll read in some of these excerpts, it's abundantly clear that he has lost his mind.
Yeah.
But the problem is that then perhaps he needs to be removed from the Senate because he is voting for genocide. But there's a lot of moneyed interests like AIPAC that are okay with somebody who's functionally basically like brain dead,
right?
As long as they vote to send weapons to Israel.
Preferred.
So yes.
I think this is what they would much rather have someone who's just going to, all they have left of their brain is the lizard part. That's just like eat chicken, sleep, go pee pee, go poo poo, vote for weapons for Israel. Like that's all they really want. They don't want anyone who's actually going to have any like critical thinking skills or someone who is going to bend to the will of their constituents because, they want, they want people to vote for Israel. That's it.
And I saw Zachary Carter say this, like that now there's this man with serious mental health struggles, and it's now indistinguishable from the bipartisan foreign policy of the United States. And that kind of tracks. But this is how this opens, this piece. It's called All by Himself over in New York Magazine. When John Fetterman was released from Walter Reed Hospital in March 2023, Adam Gentleson, then his chief of staff, was proud of his boss for seeking help for what the senator's office and his doctor had said was a case of clinical depression. His 6 weeks of inpatient care had been the latest medical setback for the Pennsylvania Democrat, who had a stroke mere months before being elected to the U.S. Senate in 2022, nearly derailing his campaign against Republican Mehmet Oz. But a year after his release from the hospital, Fetterman's behavior had so alarmed Gentleson that he had resigned his position. I should say that Gentleson was kind of defensive of Fetterman for a while, and I remember being critical of Gentleson in particular.
And I'll say he's still bashing the left in a way that I don't think this I think this is protecting his legacy a little bit. And I wouldn't have Gentleson back on this program, which he has been on this program before. I wouldn't have him back on this program. He need to do a lot more than this, in my opinion.
He went on the record, and of course there's some career self-preservation here. I'm cynically grateful for this information at the very least, but
absolutely,
agreed. Yeah. But after his release from the hospital, Fetterman's behavior had so alarmed Gentleson that he resigned his position. In May 2024, he wrote an urgent letter to David Williamson, the medical director of the Traumatic Brain Injury and Neuropsychiatry Unit at Walter Reed, who had overseen Fetterman's care at the hospital. I think John is on a bad trajectory, and I'm really worried about him, the email began. If things didn't change, Gentleson continued, he was concerned Fetterman, quote, won't be with us for much longer. His 1,600-word email came with the subject line concerns, and it contained a list of them. From the seemingly mundane, he eats fast food multiple times a day.
Okay, easy.
Yeah.
Well, that's the mundane part. I like that, too, because it's just like, well, he just had a stroke.
Right. Well, I mean, right. That's a good point.
Some large fries, please.
Yeah. That's like they're like, no, that's not even the worst of it. Him actively trying to kill himself with McDonald's is not the worst of it.
Right. That's benign here. Yeah. To the scary, we don't know if he is taking his meds, and his behavior frequently suggests he is not. We often see the kind of warning signs we discussed. Gentleson wrote, conspiratorial thinking, megalomania. For example, he claims to be the most knowledgeable source on Israel and Gaza around, but his sources are just what he reads in the news. He declines most briefings and never reads memos. High highs and low lows, long, rambling, repetitive, and self-centered monologues, lying in ways that are painfully, awkwardly obvious to everyone in the room. Fetterman was, according to Gentleson, avoiding the regular checkups advised by his doctors. He was preoccupied with the social media platform X, which he previously admitted had been a major accelerant of his depression. He drove his car so recklessly, Gentleson said, that staff refused to ride with him. He had also bought a gun.
What?
Well, I got to get my staff in the car somehow.
Was a black guy jogging nearby?
Right.
Yeah, right. It's like, I didn't know DC was so, let's just say diverse.
Right.
Let's just say diverse. Got to protect myself here.
Another red flag, Gentleson added, every person who was supposed to help him stay on his recovery plan has been pushed out. He damaged personal relationships, blah, blah, blah. There's also stuff about delusions. Just keep going. There's this, I highlighted all of these different parts. But you know, there's stuff where he thinks he's being followed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Well, DSA is gang stalking.
Yes,
him, so.
go to, if you could search members of his team, and the paragraph that starts from that's a little further down. Members of his team told me this was an early warning sign that something was off with their boss. In early February 2023, after Fetterman had indeed been sworn in, members of the Senate gathered at the Library of Congress for a caucus retreat. Fetterman, fresh off a hard-fought victory in the cycle's marquee race, should have been riding high, only he wasn't. A staffer recalled getting a text from a person at the retreat saying if their boss was okay. Fetterman was sitting at a table by himself, slowly sipping a Coke and refusing to talk with anybody. Later that day, another staffer heard an alarming report from a journalist. Fetterman had just walked obliviously into the road and was nearly struck by a car.
This is amazing. This is like, I don't know if you guys have ever, like owned a very, very old dog, but there's like, at some point you're just like, what is it doing? And then you're like, oh, it's going somewhere to die. Right. That's like, it's like, why is it spending so much time in that corner? Yeah, it's very sad.
I know. I haven't heard about anything this is like when Nixon is like after the Kent State shootings. He was like wandering around the Lincoln Memorial. I think this is in like the Oliver Stone movie, like walking around with the Lincoln Memorial and got into like fights with like anti-war activists, but like trying to make them think he was a good person. This is like Fetterman's been doing that. That was just one night for Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon
just like Fetterman's entire time in the Senate.
Nixon just had some stiff drinks. Like that's Trump level delusion. We're at a different level with Fetterman.
It's so funny because it's like this was, you know, like all of the incidents that they're citing happened like not long after he had won the election. Like as soon as he became a senator, his attitude was like, ugh, leave me alone.
I know.
And it's like, you just ran for this. Why are you mad at everyone?
Why do you have the disposition of like a teenager in a Disney original? A week later, this is crazy. I'm sorry. Sherrod Brown maybe helped give background on this because he's named specifically. A week later, Democratic Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown came to pay Fetterman a visit in his new Capitol office. They seemed destined to get along. Each hailed from a purplish red states and exuded an everyman energy more likely to be found in union halls than in the halls of Congress. But their meeting went awry. Brown tried his best to get a conversation going, but according to two people present, Fetterman was virtually, quote, catatonic. He could barely string two sentences together, talking so quietly that everyone in the room had to strain to hear him. Fetterman then stood up and began walking around the office in tight loops, a move the two staffers described as doing figure eights. After Brown left, Fetterman paced from one room inside his office complex to another and back again. At one point, one of his aides said, he walked into the hallway, peering over his shoulder as if he were being followed by shadowy figures.
God.
Hamas.
That sort of pacing, that is not a good sign.
No, that's pretty bad. Especially like the looking over your shoulder and pacing and just being like, no way out, no way out. That is, I mean, it's clear, obviously, this was like, you know, before his hospitalization for whatever mental health crisis was going on, right?
Yeah.
And then we all celebrated him putting, you know, his mental health like forward, you know, like making that an issue because we all said, yes, we need to start talking about mental health. And then
he's not a good role model for how to do mental health.
It's this thing where we're all like, well, you know, obviously we're not trying to paint every person with mental health with the same brush. And also it's important to talk about these things. Yeah, there are people who are depressed and assholes. That's a thing. You know what I mean? You can be clinically depressed and a dick.
And a dick too.
And if you're gonna say like this is how we do it, you better be a good model for it, or maybe don't put yourself on that pedestal. I would just say here's another section. I don't know if you had this, Emma, but behind the scenes things were worse. In March, Fetterman suddenly took an early morning trip to Hartford, Connecticut, without telling his team why, leaving them at a loss for what to tell Giselle, his wife, when she demanded to know why he was missing one of their kids' birthdays.
Ugh.
Fetterman objected to this characterization, saying to me, the writer, I took a weekend trip in March to visit the gravesite of my friend from grad school who died in 1993. A trip my staff and family knew about.
Okay. You mentioned, this is the last piece I'll read because you mentioned Giselle, and I actually feel for her here because I don't know what's going on, but this is when October 7th happened. This piece, it's the paragraph starts with, in the days after the October 7th attack, Israel declared war and retaliated with brute force, killing Hamas forces as well as thousands of civilians. In the U.S., progressives began calling for a ceasefire, to at least pause the carnage. Fetterman felt differently. Now is not the time to talk about a ceasefire, he posted on October 18th. We must support Israel in efforts to eliminate Hamas terrorists who slaughtered innocent men, women, and children. The base, here it goes. Early on in the conflict, 16 of his former campaign staffers wrote a letter anonymously saying they found his full-throated support for Israel to be a, quote, gutting betrayal. Jentelson had taken to defending Fetterman on X from such criticisms. I had mentioned that earlier. Yeah. But it wasn't just staffers who were upset. There was also Fetterman's wife, Giselle, who had become something of a political celebrity in her own right. She is a kind-hearted philanthropist, the proprietor of a free store in Braddock that gave away goods and clothing, a formerly undocumented immigrant from Brazil, and a vocal progressive. In early November, just weeks after the attack, Giselle arrived at her husband's Senate office, and according to a staffer present, they got into a heated argument. They are bombing refugee camps. How can you support this? The staffer recalled her saying with tears in her eyes. That's all propaganda, Fetterman replied.
Oh, God.
Later, a still visibly upset Giselle pulled the staffer aside. She asked him if members of Fetterman's team were pushing him to take these stances for political reasons. The staffer told her that the opposite was true. Many of them were as upset as she was. If you're pushing back on this, there's no hope, the staffer recalled her saying. This is horrible news.
Yeah, that is really terrible. You would at least hope that it's like, oh well, he's got a bunch of AIPAC people, lobbyists,
right,
either on staff or nearby, who are pushing him to say these things, and it's like his whole staff is like, no, he just is doing this. He's doing this gratis. He's just for free. He's going to carry water for a genocide.
And I know that maybe I'm too obsessed with these details. I promise these are the final two paragraphs, but this is just astounding to me. A few days later, Giselle texted a different staffer. I am at a breaking point and can't co-sign this any longer. I'd love some help in language to separate myself from this. Can anyone help me?
Oh, geez.
Giselle might have
the language is divorce.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But your husband goes through this enormous health situation, like a stroke. You want to stand by him, but you don't, and you hope that it gets better and he gets back to his former self. But the final paragraph points out that his father, Carl Fetterman, an insurance executive, is very pro-Israel and would love when Fetterman would go on Fox News. So he's regressed to his childhood state, is what it seems like. So
make Uncle Carl happy.
There you go. Whoa.
I mean, listen, it's always hard to, be in a marriage with two people who are very political. My wife and I go through this all the time when, she's trying to speak out against Palestine and I am making TikToks, making fun of the victims of Israel. It's hard. It's hard when one person cares a lot about something and the other person is a literal genocidal monster. You never know who you're going to marry is the point.
Right. You kind of flipped a coin with Francesca, and it came up tails.
It worked out. But hey, who knows for how long? I could have a stroke I just turned 40. I could have a stroke right now, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, it's great, Israel and dead kids. Those are great things that I love. Yeah. The article also pointed out that he had kind of had these positions before October 7th, right? That he had been a pro-Israel, but
right.
I there is part of me that doesn't that has trouble fully buying a commitment this strong. You know what I mean? Like this does feel like a commitment to Israel this strong does feel like stroke based. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's not to say he didn't have major problems as a politician before.
Ben Burgess, I mean, before Fetterman was even elected, had a piece saying he's basically progressive except for Palestine.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, but this is the kind of thing that, I mean,
puts it into overdrive.
Right. And like, why don't we have any mechanisms to deal with this kind of break? Like, and we can talk about Biden in this instance. And frankly, well, we know that they're not going to impeach Donald Trump because the Republicans hold the Senate and the House, but he's clearly completely lost his marbles, believing the photoshopped MS-13 knuckle thing that Stephen Miller is just like feeding to him on his desk at this point.
Yeah.
These guys are losing it.
Yeah, it is wild.
There's a tweet we found. You want to put it up, Matt? Before we let Giselle completely off the hook or, cry too big of a river for her, this was in March, her posing with Netanyahu.
I mean, that's not great, but I mean, they said he got a gun, and there's like some
That's true.
abusive sounding things in the article. I'm
and
not
also,
gonna,
if you look at her body language, she is facing away from him. So, as a certified body language expert, I would say that she is not into that particular situation.
Oh, you're trained in body language expertise. This is for your audition for Fox News. I understand.
That's right. Yeah. This is how I punch
or
left.
Joy Reid, rather.
Yeah, she was a body language expert with Bernie, remember? There's just one final section, I think, to underline kind of like the genocidal mania this guy is. He's meeting with Jeremy Ben-Ami of like sort of liberal Zionist organization J Street, which is pro-Israel and pro-peace, whatever. And Fetterman lectures the guy, saying, "You can't reform sour milk," he told Ben-Ami, according to the notes from the meeting, referring to Palestinians as sour milk. Fetterman said he did not believe in a two-state solution and claimed that he had never met an Arab person who would condemn Hamas. Correction, the notes from the meeting stated, only a single Arab he has met with that staff was present for wouldn't outright condemn Hamas. Fetterman went on to make statements that shocked people. In opposing a ceasefire, he said, "Let's get back to killing." A person who heard the conversation told me, he said, "Kill them all." In a statement, Fetterman denied the account, adding, "Any reference to killing was solely about Hamas, and I do support the destruction of that organization down to its last member." I don't believe him.
I mean, he can claim. I mean, that's the old, switcheroo trick what they do with the Hamas thing, where it's just like, no, all of my genocidal language, if I just direct it at Hamas, then I don't have to think about the fact that, I consider literally every man, woman, and child in Gaza to be Hamas.
They're either Hamas, then that's the top tier.
Pre-Hamas.
Pre-Hamas, or Hamas enablers, like the women that are married to Hamas.
They're not overthrowing Hamas, so,
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're Hamas voters, or they're the progeny of Hamas voters. Like, this is, they've all but stated that there is, not a single uninvolved person in Gaza. And, that Fetterman is buying that line, hook, line, and sinker. So, like, he's, he can play off. It's just funny to be like, no, I just meant Hamas. Saying kill them all about anybody is weird. Yeah. Saying kill them all is one of those things that Nazis say.
It's literally what movie villains will. That's a classic movie villain screaming "kill them all."
Yeah,
or metalheads.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, they're just calling out for a song name they like. That's different.
I'm not. I'm too posh to understand this reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you gotta start listening to Metallica. Noises. Well, listen to Reload. Reload by Metallica has some of their more more melodic stuff. You'll like it.
All right. Well, thanks for the tip. So back to genocide. No, what's been your Bad Hasbra? Everybody should check it out. I really had such a great time when I was on with you. I mean, maybe that must have been like a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
But what's been your experience covering this over the first 100 days of Donald Trump? I mean, activism for Palestine. It's not harder. The struggle is always difficult, of course, but you have a completely untethered, unhinged administration, and there's been no food that has gotten into Gaza in food, water, or medicine in 60 days. And it feels like we're at one of the most dangerous points in the genocide.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the first 100 days of the Trump administration and everything that's gone on, with the genocide since, it's been, it's gone kind of exactly how I thought it was going to go and how it was supposed to have gone this whole time. You have the PR, ceasefire, this essentially a win for the Trump administration right off the bat. And it existed, I think, primarily so that Trump could have this, easy runway for his first 100 days that Israel couldn't help but break almost immediately. And I knew as soon as they did, all of this talk of like, they had, people going to Netanyahu and saying, you better do a ceasefire. Trump wants one and you're going to do one. And then as soon as they broke it, they were like, okay, are you guys going to kill everyone? That's fine. What do you need? And it's so clear. I mean, all of the talk about, how terrible, the Democrats are, which they are, they lost this election because they could not admit to themselves or the American people that this was, a genocide. I mean, they lost for a ton of reasons, but I think that is a big part of it.
Huge.
And they ceded that ground to Trump, to where he was going out and pretending like he was a dove. It was completely like ridiculous. Like people were like, he could say that because they were out there, being like, we got to make sure that Israel has everything they need in order to do genocide. So anyways, the Hezbollah around that has been interesting because you've seen kind of a split, whereas I feel like the more liberal Zionist PR spin was kind of, I would say, the mainstay of the Biden administration. Now you are seeing the PR go full Beitar. And if you don't know what Beitar is, it's this very right-wing Zionist organization that is like, they think the ADL are Hamas. Like that's how psychopathic they are. And
Jonathan Greenblatt, I mean, he's obviously anti-Semitic.
Oh yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, he is. He just doesn't know he is.
Yes. Like future Hamas, he's future anti-Semite. We just,
Yes. But like it is wild just watching kind of for as mask off as Israel has been, it's wild to watch. Like, oh shit, I didn't know there was more mask. Like they keep removing extra parts of the mask, and I'm like, Jesus, at what point? Like Netanyahu just recently said, like we prioritize the destruction of, quote, Hamas over bringing back our civilians. Like he's saying that out loud, which is a wild thing to say when you can just infer it using your brain. You know what I mean? Like, just look what's happened for the last 18 months. We know that, BB.
Yeah.
You don't
he gets off on it in like the way that when Trump, they did that press conference and Trump was saying, who would want to live there? It's destroyed, sitting next to the man who's responsible for the destruction.
Right.
He's smiling because they think they're doing a little bit of a trick, like in the same way that they messed with the Biden administration, who was not earnestly pursuing a ceasefire, but they wanted better PR for themselves at the very least.
Yeah.
The Netanyahu was toying with him in that way too.
Yeah. It's wild to see. I mean, the repression has obviously gotten even more insane, but I kind of see it all as a continuation. This was like the logical endpoint of what the Democrats have allowed to happen, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's why when I see like Cory Booker or fucking Hakeem Jeffries or like any of these like centrist Dems who are talking about deportations, I'm just like, you set up the dominoes. The idea that you're just like, who I didn't think you guys were going to knock them down. You know,
yeah.
I just thought it was like, wow, look at all these dominoes all next to each other. I thought we were just going to look at it and enjoy. Like, you know, I can't take any of them seriously, and I can't take anyone seriously, honestly, in the Democratic Party who doesn't, you know, full-throatedly ask for, you know, not only no weapons to Israel, but also a complete isolation of it, as if it were apartheid South Africa, because it is, but worse.
Yep. And it's our old producer Bradley referred one time to Cory Booker as having a Winnie the Pooh disposition, and I think about that often with him. And it's used.
If Winnie Pooh had a psychopathic will to power from like teenage years, maybe.
Right? Or not even the disposition. It's more like the way he presents politically, and it's like, why are you wearing the pin that's meant to like falsely link the genocide to the return of the hostages, as you talk about like the dangers of authoritarianism. It's so
I love to talk about
hollow.
authoritarianism in 2025 and not for like a whole day and not mention Israel and what we're doing one time. That's
Right.
kind of
Well, it's why liberal Zionists are fascist enablers, and I think that's like a really important way for us to refer to them, because we wouldn't have this, as you say, the situation that we're in without this permission structure being created by many, many Democrats. What is, like, just to zoom out about some of how liberal Zionists are reacting, like maybe even in your life, because we've talked about this on your show too, about how there was outrage for probably like 4 or 5 months of like, I don't know, me getting freezed out, maybe you a little bit by some people after October 7th. I'm an anti-Semite, whatever.
Right.
Then we have, like tensions begin to cool. Maybe not from my end, because I'm infuriated by these people like justifying this. But like, there's now been, I think, maybe around 6 to 8 months of these folks that were saying anybody speaking out for Palestine or anti-Semitic, it's just radio silence. Yeah. And it feels like that's maybe even a longer period of that, where it's like they just, these people who were very vocal about the anti-Semitism in the pro-Palestine movement are just like quiet, nothing. Is there any self-reflection happening in your experience?
I've been shocked by the lack of self-reflection. Like that truly, it's almost like a feat. It amazes me the amount of people I know who still have not I don't like apologized to me.
Oh, I'm going to be waiting until the end of my life
wife.
for some of
those. It's like it's just for the reactions. And like the worst thing that I've seen has been a like very intense revisionism with a lot of these liberal Zionists, where they'll start saying things like, oh, well, everyone wanted a ceasefire. We all wanted a ceasefire. It's like, who doesn't want a ceasefire?
We agreed that they're being genocidal. They won't say genocide, but they'll say they're being genocidal. It's, I love to be murderous and not do murdering.
Right, exactly. Just for for a treat. But like they would straight up start like calling me or my wife anti-Semitic for saying the word ceasefire in obviously October, November, December 2023, up until like May of 2024. Just anyone saying ceasefire, it was synonymous with being like a Hamas supporting anti-Semite. Now, I swear to God, I've seen people who are straight up just they're guffawing at anyone who ever said ceasefire, because they're like, yeah, we all wanted a ceasefire. Everyone is doing the thing where they're going to revise everything that they said beforehand. They're gonna change the goalposts as to what they cared about, while simultaneously remaining firmly in the camp of, well, Israel's got to do what Israel's got to do. They will find whatever way to defend it that they can. And in my life, it's been, for the most part, people who are, who at one point may have been like yelling at me about stuff, texting me insane propaganda. now, where they still don't talk to me, but they will like post like, man, that this Donald Trump, he is a bad guy. He's a bad dude. And I'm just like, you have no right to talk about anything. if you spent the first 14 months of genocide actively supporting it, and now you're just like, this Donald Trump guy, I don't know about him. I think he's bad. We all need to band together. It's just like, no, F off.
Do you think that is like really for me? There's this navel gazing element of which we're all guilty of. I mean, like you have to have a healthy ego to put your face on camera and talk to it. So I'm not excluding myself from this.
We all gaze at navels.
Sure, but like the thing that's been most difficult, I think, to fight through with some of the liberal Zionists is just like, I vote Democrat, so I am a good person. I have like these very set viewpoints about like racism, but it's only in a domestic context. I don't want to think about our foreign policy. I don't want to think about capitalism and its role in, immiserating people in the global South and the Middle East. Just like that is also a part of our racist worldwide structure where like the idea that the greatest barrier for you to oppose one of the greatest crimes in the history of humanity that we're currently living through is your own personal like narcissism about how good you are.
Yeah.
Is there anything more privileged than that very notion?
Right. Yeah. No,
it makes me mad.
Yeah, no, it's insane the amount of how much Zionism does come from being completely self-centered, but like or how much fascism just comes from being completely self-centered. It's especially, I think it's when it's when it's liberals, it's always worse because it comes from this deeply insecure part of their psyche that defines like goodness by the perception of goodness. It defines morality by the perception of they themselves being moral. And so whatever decision they make, whatever position they hold, must be moral because they are moral. They're like, I'm good, so everything I think good. And it's like this really like baby brain thing where you realize how many liberals are just essentially conservatives in waiting, because the inability to learn, the inability to self-reflect is like, it's like the classic like conservative stereotype. And you just, people always wonder, it's like, how come, the youth, they start out liberal, then they go conservative? And it's like, well, because a lot of liberalism is just, completely superficial. It's not actually about learning anything or believing in anything. It is about, feeling good about yourself. And then as soon as something affects you personally, that's why it's always starts with like taxes.
Right.
Or someone will just be like, I used to believe in like, gay marriage and stuff, but then I had to pay $10,000 to the IRS. And now I'll pretty much throw anyone under the bus in order to, in order to get that money back.
Yeah, and I mean, even like you see it here, especially on the East Coast with the SALT deduction fight. Like the same people that were obsessed with this is just like a more upper middle class deduction that is in blue states that primarily was that Trump eliminated the first time.
Which deduction is this?
It's a taxation deduction. It's called the SALT, the state and local tax deduction. And there's a fight, with like the Josh Gottheimer and the conservative Democrats, and then the moderate Mike Lawler Republicans are want to bring back the SALT deduction, but Trump initially used it as a way to punish blue states. And I just see this like all liberal Zionists are all like, you ask them about taxes and they're like, God, I hate Trump because of that SALT deduction thing. It's like, oh, you hate Trump now because he made your taxes go up by like a small amount. Great.
Yeah, that it is like, it is crazy the amount of, this is why it's so funny to talk to a liberal Zionist, because I enjoy hearing, it's like, so what do you care about? Because that's always fascinating to me, to be able to compartmentalize. Like, it used to be you were compartmentalizing something that was, like without doing any further reading, you could just assume Israel good. It was like, especially if you were, grew up loving Israel or thinking Israel was, belonged to you because of, past Jewish trauma and whatnot. But now, like, genocide happening, and to be able to compartmentalize that and still be like, complaining about the salt tax, like that's incredible to me. It's like I want to like dive into that brain and swim around for a bit.
Yeah,
I just want to see what other little pockets of weird shit you've been like suppressing.
I should correct myself. It's because Trump capped the SALT deduction, so it limited it to you couldn't do tens of thousands of dollars. It was at
right.
10K.
10,000, yeah, 10,000, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just one example I can think of. But
But
Matt,
yeah, I mean, even in deportations and shit like that. I mean, you see the amount of like, these are the same liberals who were at the anti-ICE protests, back in during the Trump administration.
The Muslim ban, they were against that.
100%. And now it's like, some of them will still, march against Trump. And I'll be like, you have seen the amount of students they are deporting for writing essays or attending marches. You're attending a march. How do you live with this in your brain? It's wild. It's
because those marches are, and it's nice to see people in the streets, but it's just about demonstrating your opposition, where it comes back to the navel gazing thing.
Get your steps in too.
As opposed to having concrete demands, which is an actual threat. The pro-Palestine demonstrations are about divesting from Israel, like very, very specific.
Yeah. Hey,
demands.
school, divest from Israel.
Yes.
That's what Rumesa is. And Rumesa Ezturk wasn't even that. It was like, hey, school, our students said divest from Israel. Listen to them.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's wild. It's such a specific demand. I talked to a liberal Zionist recently who said that he was like, I think they shouldn't have done the encampments, all that stuff, because it's like people get annoyed by that. It's like bad optics, and also it's like, what do they even want? And I was like, did you not talk to anybody?
I know. But they're recycling the Occupy,
yes.
The anti-Occupy critique.
Yeah,
what do they even want? No, I mean, okay, I'm sorry. You cannot make that critique of these protesters. Their demands are right in front of you.
Yes. It's completely ridiculous. It's on signs. It says,
yes,
divest. Yeah.
Anyway, what'd you say? You want to do this? Do you have? Okay.
I don't know if Matt's got to go. There's another Fetterman video
I
I've
don't
never
gotta
seen
go.
before.
I don't got shit. This is my birthday. I
You
told
want to
my
spend
wife.
an hour?
I told my wife I'm doing whatever I want today. I'm gonna go on Majority Report. We're gonna talk about Fetterman's weird ass.
Let's go nuts. We got
Let's go
another
crazy.
Fetterman clip here. Another time where he's seated and seemingly unaware of his surroundings, this time in public, or at least on an airplane.
This is from a Prem Talker of Zeteo video from February when John Fetterman got in an argument with a pilot about wearing his seatbelt so it was visible. And
this was cited in that extensive New York Magazine piece.
Of course, he's getting in fights with fucking flight attendants.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, it's okay, but it just has to be visible to the crew at all times. It's a federal regulation, so if your seatbelt's on, it just has to be visible. And right now, it's not visible.
I'm depressed.
Make it bigger so
Bro, what are we doing?
The point of a seatbelt is for me to be safe, right? I don't want to be safe.
I want to die.
I'm
just
trying
like
to
Hamas.
die.
I'm thinking about my friend from grad school that died in 1993.
He wore a seatbelt and died anyway.
Wouldn't it be amazing if he was going to Israel as some sort of like death wish? Where he's just like, he wants a Hamas rocket to fall on him so fucking bad.
Just blow me out of the sky.
Just walks into the sea. If he really wants to die, just hop aboard an aid flotilla.
Right.
Do that
Right.
if you really want to get killed. Yeah, it's so funny, these like Fetterman videos that keep coming out, and it's like every picture of glum Keanu met every picture of glum Ben Affleck. You're just like, there's not a single phrase. It's like whatever, it's a photogenic version of always looking depressed, but I think he is actually a very, very sad man, which I mean, that's just called karma, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to ask him, like, hey, can you talk about how important joy is to your life?
yeah, exactly. Can you speak on joy? Yeah.
Well,
it is wild.
Yeah, he should probably watch Inside Out. It'll help him identify his emotions better.
That's right. That's right. That'll help.
Yeah. Matt Lieb, we really appreciate your time today. Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Sorry, Sam couldn't show up again for our scheduled debate, but that's fine.
Yeah.
No problem.
You're gonna have to find a time to do that, because he needs to be called out on some of the horrible things that
pro-Hamas
he said.
stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, consider this his official calling out. Sam, you run away every time I show up. Every time I show up, you're just like, oh, I'm scared to debate Matt Lieb. Well, guess what? I'm calling you out. You better show up next
More
time.
content.
There's a throwdown.
That's right. I'm tired of you saying how much you love Hamas. You're always out here being pro-Hamas.
Down.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, please check out Matt and Franny in San Francisco on Wednesday,
May
7th.
That's right. Cobb's Comedy Club.
Cobb's Comedy Club. We'll put a link to that in the description below. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye, y'all.
Bye. We're not. Maybe should we just? Can I?
Freebie Friday.
Can I do Freebie Friday?
This is Emma's making her first Freebie Friday call.
Am I gonna get fired?
Sam comes storming. The
Yeah,
red
no,
phone.
stop breathing.
The red phone starts ringing.
Just blame it on me. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. It's
Shabbat
Russ's fault.
shalom, everyone.
Exactly.
You don't respect the rule of law. You've shat all over it.
Okay.
That's what you did. And we know it now.
Oh, honestly, my one regret is that I wish that Megyn Kelly was like a part of, an all-female talk show, right? As a part, just like I think her voice is sorely needed in like to
have real conversations
in the feminist talk space. Russ, we have merch. We've got to talk about that, right? That's the most important thing on the menu
There's
here.
new merch.
New merch. We have new merch, really.
Well, I don't know if
merch.
Yeah, there's merch.
Might be new.
It's new. I just got here, guys. I don't know what's old and new. But
Yeah, I don't know why I'm.
I think it's new.
Shop.majorityreportradio.com. We're about to pull that up, and then we'll. Oh, it is. Oh my God, this is hilarious. Okay. I did not know that this is what the merch was. People will get the joke in just a second. But maybe if you're on the podcast audience, we'll make you go to the website shop.majorityreportradio.com so you can see what we're talking about here. But new ways to identify the fact that you're a total hysterical extremist and not a populist that can sit down with Charlie Kirk. Oh, you want that beanie, huh?
Well, I know somebody who might.
Oh, that's true. Well, didn't Sam try to give that to him as a gift?
I think he did. Yeah, give him one of them.
Do we have more? Is that all the new stuff? Like, just show. Yeah, I mean, then there's the classic stuff.
But here's the Max Left trucker hat there.
Here it is. If you want to show everybody that you're completely unreasonable,
You're part of the
beyond
irresponsible Max Left. That's the reason Trump isn't doing left wing stuff.
Right, because you said that if you think that trans women should be able, 5 trans women should be singled out from participating in sports, or like 3 girls in the state of Texas or something like that, show you're completely insane by buying this merch.
See, I thought it was like there was a guy that used to work here named Max, and he left. So it's like
no longer. That didn't make any sense. Max Left writes in, our old employee, you fucker stole my podcast name. Sorry, buddy. We trademarked your name back in the day, like Kim Kardashian did with her kids. George from Colorado, please know this is the worst thing Anna has done. Actually, I want her to fade into obscurity so bad. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I've been offline.
Yeah, right, exactly. Shapeshifter.
Whoopsies.
You're about to be value tanked.
Compartmentalizing Israel's genocide. That's what Bernie Sanders does. There, look, there's a spectrum of what is acceptable in Washington to say, and I think,
we've been clear. Bernie's the best senator on the
On
issue,
this.
but as far as he shouldn't say genocide. He shouldn't say Golda Meir is a model of getting along with others.
But I also give him grace as an older Jewish man in his 80s, where it's like he's up to he's there's sometimes like a lack of elasticity where some of that stuff's more ingrained, but he's trying to block arms sales to Israel, and that really is what matters, I think.
And I think it's fairly obvious to most people that take Palestine seriously as an issue that is what you can expect at this point. Like the pattern is there. He's not going to be a leader rhetorically like say Rashida Tlaib might on a lot of these issues. It's just not what we can expect from Bernie. But frankly, look at the Senate. Who is going to be remotely courageous on that issue? And that's a very important body to have. And the truth is, Bernie is better than what senator is good at Bernie on the issue of Israel-Palestine?
None.
Someone just posted here in the YouTube comments, Mopo, Sam is the same age as Bernie, and he isn't a Zionist.
That's correct that they're the same age.
Yeah, they're both born in what? I mean, I think Bernie's older
comment.
brother, right, is actually more of an anti-Zionist than maybe Bernie is. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but
His brother, the one who voted for him from
UK
abroad,
one.
yeah. That was such a sweet moment at the convention in 2016. Fabulous. I already read that one. Hopeful one. I live in a nice zip code in a lovely condo. My downstairs neighbor is a bougie drug dealer, a white man, and the son of high-ranking police officials. Miss me with this fear of brown people. Exactly. Punch Drunk Pulpit. Sam, please ask Mehdi to bring back America Unhinged with Francesca and Wajahat. Well, that passed, but agreed on the sentiment. Shapeshifter, you have to be insanely boring if you think cheating at Path of Exile 2 would make you cool. I don't get that reference.
That's about Elon Musk hiring people to level his guys up. I wish I could say that I didn't understand it, but I will occasionally pay in to get extra cards on NBA 2K because I want my team to be better. So, should I do that? No. But it's nice to have a game that's a little bit easier because you have a good card. I don't know.
I used to do that in Sims. I'd put in rosebuds so I could get all the money I wanted.
Just buy a big stereo system.
Yes.
And a pool.
Make a pool. Have a nice family. I mean, I would get bored after they'd have 2 kids and it's time to start a new family.
I do think Musk is 60, right? I think at that age, I'm actually over that. My 20-year-old self understands the thing of I wouldn't do it, but I understand why somebody would want to appear better at Rocket League or something than they actually are. You are a titan of industry that does government contracts for billions of dollars. That is weird. That's very strange.
Right. Wavy Gravy. Yesterday, you guys played a clip of Trump's town hall with Stephen A. Smith. Not sure you guys saw the other part where Stephen A. asked Trump about the Harvard situation. I guess Trump thought, yes, I did see this. Stephen A. said Harlem. So Trump goes into a rant about Harlem, but realizes halfway through that Stephen A. said Harvard. Trump then rants about people from Harlem protesting at Harvard. But
He's gone, man. He's going to be so fried.
But do you think he heard Stephen A. thought New York and black guy and then went with Harlem.
That could have definitely been sort of like the preconditioning for that mishearing.
Although maybe I'm being too generous by even thinking he made the New York connection and just thought black guy then Harlem. That's probably how direct it was.
The more straight line.
I thought that there's a previous, like, I don't know if it was right before this, but also some discussion about the HBCUs. So I don't know if it was like in his brain that sort of mushed into like Harvard versus the HBCUs.
Black overload.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, black overload.
Yes, Harvard or Harlem University, the famous HBCU that everyone's heard of. All right, so let's do some clips here. What's good, folks? I
like this Ilhan one.
Oh yeah, okay.
I also like the one with our boy from Texas, Tallarico. But
we'll do 7 and 8, just because Ilhan Omar is up there with like some of the arguably our best elected Democrat. I mean, that's
absolutely.
I think you could say, I mean, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Bernie Sanders. This is the kind of people that we're talking about here. But Ilhan Omar, for me, has this blend of just being completely uncompromising in a good way on the moral issues of our time, including Israel's genocide in Gaza. And she stood up to AIPAC and took a huge hit being called an anti-Semite really early on in her career. That smear was aided by the leader of her own party, Nancy Pelosi, and other Democrats. She withstood that. She got into more high up leadership positions on the Congressional Progressive Caucus. She's just a very smart and talented politician, in addition to having the right things to say. And this is how you deal with freaks like this guy Miles Morell of the Daily Caller trying to talk to her on the street about immigration.
Congresswoman Omar, I'm Miles Morell with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Do you think more of your Democratic colleagues should be traveling to El Salvador to advocate on behalf of Rodrigo Garcia?
I think you should fuck off. Yeah, that's
I'm sorry, what, Congresswoman?
Fuck off.
Who should?
Yes.
Why me?
I'm not taking any questions right now, but here you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Hell yes.
Congresswoman Omar.
Oh.
That is what we like to see. God bless Ilhan and her staff.
Yeah.
His reaction's pretty funny too. It's in there.
What?
He posted a reaction video, like clutching his pearls about her.
Oh, please,
language.
let's play this. Because, I mean, we're going to have a Republican that's upset about some disrespect to the press.
He's a journalist.
Oh, right. The Republicans who have a president who is so respectful of journalists and the press, so much so that if they don't follow his lead and change the data internally at their news organization to say that the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America, he's going to ban them from the White House.
Also, a journalist who in his Twitter profile, like the background picture is him standing in front of the Trump 2024 plane with like a big thumbs up and a grin on his face.
That's
objectivity.
That's the guy. This is the bastion of the free press here in this country. So this is his poor victim upset about Ilhan telling him to fuck off.
Today, I've been asking House Dems if they would encourage their colleagues to go to El Salvador to advocate on behalf of Rodrigo Garcia. And when I encountered Ilhan Omar and I asked her that question, she immediately responded by telling me to F off. I asked her to follow up. She told me to F off.
She said fuck off.
Again, and I just found that very unprofessional, very rude, especially when I was just a journalist who's trying to do his job.
No, you're a hog.
Today,
a journalist just trying to do his job.
You're a hog that should be in a pen.
He was verbally assaulted.
We're gonna really clutch our pearls about the freedom of the press here. Come on.
That is the freedom of the press. You got your quote. Fuck off.
Yeah, that's exactly
What
right.
do you mean professional? You're not the who the hell are you? Who's Miles? Well, can we get a little biographic information on this hog? Like, who is he to lecture a elected doubly? How many times has Ilhan been elected? A member of Congress.
Since 2018.
3 times?
Yeah.
About manners. Bro, it's you. You're not the professionalism police. You work for the fucking Daily Caller.
Yeah, and it's just silly because they do this all the time. I mean, this is how the far right operates. They're both like, they accuse the left of being snowflakes and weak and pathetic, but they can't handle any kind of pushback without whining. Yeah, cry bullies. But isn't that the hallmark of fascists too?
It's all Vance does.
They hold these contradictions in their minds and they don't even think twice about it. Where fascists, when they define their opponents often, whether it's, the Nazis and the Jews and other movements that have targeted minority groups in the past, their opponents and the people that they're persecuting are Israel and the Palestinians. Oh, Hamas, they're so powerful. They're this terrorist organization that has the capacity to kill us all. And they want to wipe Israel off the map. But they're also so pathetic and don't have Western values and are essentially primitive. And fascists do this here in the United States. That they are both like incredibly weak and fragile, but also the strong men and the tough guys. Like, pick which one, but that's kind of the binary that they put themselves in with their worldview. So, Donald Trump is one of the worst presidents in the history of this country in terms of press freedom and freedom of speech. Let's not even get into that right now. Ilhan Omar has the freedom of speech to tell you fuck off. You know who doesn't have the freedom of speech to say how they actually feel about the world and who try to engage in political protest, which is the hallmark of the First Amendment and our country's founding? Romeo Ozturk, Mahmoud Khalil, all of the other political prisoners right now in the Trump administration who have been speaking out against the genocide in Gaza.
Here's some headlines from the Daily Caller about Ilhan Omar, and this is why these and look, I don't like the mainstream press either.
Right.
This is not an improvement. These stupid hogs. She learned young that crying racism pays. That's Tucker Carlson blasting her in 2019. Ilhan Omar defends Dem rep who called Israel racist. That seems like probably Rashida Tlaib maybe, but that is a good call. Israel is racist. Lawmaker calls Crenshaw racist. I'm pretty sure she deserved it. Rashida Tlaib defends Ilhan Omar's 9/11 comments. I'm sure that was a good defense. Racist Trump. I mean, this is fuck the Daily Caller. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, they were a huge part of the direction of extremely racist, xenophobic attacks towards Ilhan Omar. As I said earlier, like, people may not remember what it was like when she first entered Congress.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she has come a long way within the caucus that finally defends her or doesn't at least maliciously go after her. But for a while, she was fighting on two fronts. The entire Republican Party that was foaming at the mouth with Islamophobia and saying that she had sex with her brother and these disgusting, disgusting Islamophobic Nazi smears. And then you had Nancy Pelosi.
By a sex trafficker, by a guy who got busted at Anton Lazaro in Minnesota. The source for the Ilhan married her brother thing is a guy named Anton Lazaro, who Tucker Carlson defended, who had one young girl recruiting others for him for sex stuff at St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Yeah, right. And then the Democrats were also throwing her under the bus as well. So good for her for standing up for. Or just telling that guy to fuck off, as she says.
There's a quote. Because, I mean, let's address the actual issue, right?
Yeah.
The will you go defend people who are MS-13 members, just allege that. Take that as proven in court, even though it's not. What has been said by a court is, don't send that guy to El Salvador, and then you send him to fucking El Salvador, to a prison colony. That's the issue. Honestly, he could be like a mass murderer. He could be a serial killer. It doesn't matter. When the courts say, don't send that person to that country, and you send that person to that country, and then you say, well, fuck off. I'm not going to try to make this problem better. That's the problem.
Right.
You know, I think one of the things that makes, or a show of how great of a politician Omar is, I don't know the order of these things. Either this exchange took place and then she walked into Congress and gave a speech where she talked about the Abrego Garcia case.
Can we play that?
Yeah, we should play it. I have it in the sound sheet.
8.
Or if it was vice versa, which would sort of make more sense, that she'd given the speech and he heard it or read it or something and was like, oh, I'm gonna call her out on this. But I just think it's cool to listen to, like, in the street she deals with this idiot the way she did, and this is what she sounds like when she's actually engaging in, like, political discourse that's in good faith.
In a way Fetterman could never.
I am here today as a representative of a community that is deeply alarmed by the actions of this administration. Just weeks ago, the Trump administration defied a unanimous, we didn't think this was possible, but a unanimous Supreme Court order by refusing to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father wrongfully deported to the notorious prison in El Salvador. Despite the court's clear directive, the administration continues to ignore the rule of law, undermining the very foundation of our democracy. In my own district, the situation is equally troubling. A graduate student at the University of Minnesota was detained by ICE agents without warning. Despite having no involvement in political activism, he was taken from his home, held without immediate explanation, and had his visa retroactively revoked. This action not only disturbed his education, but also instilled fear in our academic community. These are not isolated incidents. Across the country, people are being detained and deported without due process, often based on tenuous or unverified allegations. The administration's use of obscure laws like the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to justify these actions is a blatant abuse of power. We must ask ourselves, if the rights of non-citizens can be so easily disregarded, whose rights will be next? Our Constitution guarantees due process and equal protection under the law to everyone in this country, not just citizens. If the government can silence you, detain you, or deport you while defying court orders, then none of our rights are safe. If we let this slide, we are saying the Constitution is optional, and it is not. What we are seeing is authoritarianism creeping in through the back door, one ignored ruling at a time. My colleagues and I are ready to fight back with everything we've got. Thank you, and I yield back.
Amazing stuff. Love Ilhan Omar.
And folks, I don't want to go too far afield, but one of the big early things she did was go after Elliot Abrams.
Right.
And people can look up that clip. I'm sure we covered it here. And I just remember, like, just want to point out the type of crap that she's had to deal with her entire time in Congress. This is a Vox explainer of that by Zach Beauchamp, who is, for some reason, their Israel guy, even though I think he's probably not great at it. And this is just the first paragraph. First-term Rep. Ilhan Omar is making headlines again on the heels of a controversy surrounding a tweet of hers that struck many observers, including me, as anti-Semitic. Omar has again garnered attention over her tough questioning of Trump's special envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams. So Zach Beauchamp decides to start off, and that tweet was the All About the Benjamins tweet about why we support Israel so much. That tweet is 10 toes down, absolutely correct. And the clutching at pearls from people like Zach Beauchamp is every bit as problematic to me as the Daily Caller type bullshit. And it's so clear why and how complicit our media class is with how far this goddamn stuff with Israel's getting out of hand. Where, I mean, it's just, we're taking drones, let's bomb flotillas of people just trying to bring food into the country.
Yeah.
Because Zach Beauchamp, because he can't figure out if there's a tunnel between the West Bank and Gaza yet. That's a famously correction he had to put on. But yet Vox is going to put him on this, and he's gonna clear his throat before Ilhan Omar. This one of the best things that a congressperson done is take Elliot Abrams to task. We're going to imply that she's anti-Semitic. It's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, Beauchamp was the guy that thought there was a land bridge between the West Bank and Gaza, which is like.
And it's like, oh, sorry, that was just thought of.
Yeah, that's.
Let's keep publishing this guy on the tub. Let's not pull him off the subject forever.
Yeah.
Let's hear what he has to say about the possibilities of liberal Zionism's reemergence. Something. Everyone's head is filled with shit by complete charlatans.
Yep. George from Colorado. That clip goes to show how clear and concise of a communicator she is. Buenora. Credit where it's due to America's neoliberal turn. We figured out how to outsource concentration camps. Hey, well, the Nazis also did not put their concentration camps in Germany proper, so it's just a fascist. They're borrowing from some of the worst people in history. Molly Gray Jedi, someone in an oversized sweater and basketball shorts surviving on fast food is literally the least surprising thing about Fetterman. Yeah. Courier 11 seconds. Twitter left searches far and wide for babies to throw out with the bathwater. Bobby Naffo, have you tried asking Megyn Kelly about her take yet? Not quite.
Her take on what? I don't know what you mean.
Whoopsies. Jersey Bernie Bro. It's similar to Occupy critiques, but more like BLM 2020 critiques, where many on the right and liberals left of center were saying they don't agree with how people were protesting. That's always the fig leaf. Drewish. Fetterman running around wearing the Israeli flag like a cape makes more sense now. Yeah. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator Trump in December let them eat fentanyl. Labor guy Fetterman should resign and start a podcast with Ethan Klein. That's actually a good idea. Tom from Akiba, Matt Lieb, the world's most moral birthday boy. Vinny from Buffalo, Palestine has done a unique thing in splitting liberals into people who can reflect on their morality and people who fell into liberalism by accident. Well said. Josh from Minnesota, is Matt just Sam wearing glasses? When did you last see the two of them in the same room? Think about it.
Sam also wears glasses.
Yes. Molly Gray Jedi says he still wears and one basketball shorts. Those are like old school basketball
like
shorts.
2005.
Yeah, right. Like the baggiest ever. I mean, that's like, you know, Shaq and Kobe on the Lakers. That's how everyone was wearing
Iverson,
their shorts.
yeah.
Yep.
I thought that was going to last forever. And now people are, even me, I'm wearing above the knee right now.
Well, baggy stuff is back. Like, baggy stuff is back, I think.
I'm not ready for it. It's back for like women. I feel like Charlie XCX wears really baggy.
But no, it's back for gay men too, who lead straight men, I think, into more fashionable wear. Like
It's
that's
just way better to have short shorts. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to talk about this anyway. I agree. I like the more fitted stuff, but it's now it's all those like big, oversized, thick T-shirts, right? And the cargo pants. It all is cyclical.
Did this in the 2000s.
I know. Clearwater Nick, I desperately want to dump Derek Van Orden from the House. Will you guys cover the Democratic primary in his districts? Emily Burgay and Laura Benjamin both have a great shot at flipping the seat. Sure. All right, let's do some more clips. What numbers are? Oh wait, 17. Okay. You wanted to do. What did you suggest, Russ?
Well, there's a woman that has a take.
Oh.
And then also
There's a take, huh?
well, yeah.
Who has this take?
It's she.
Whoopsies. This is number 13. I haven't seen this yet. I was prepping for the show, so I missed the premiere of her take.
And then after that I was going to say
Which one?
13.
Okay.
But then after that I was going to say 14.
All right.
But, you know, up to you. You're steering the ship.
I don't even. Is this just the promo?
Yeah, we don't want to do it.
I don't care.
All right.
I don't care. Oh wait, 13's not the show, not the take show. Yeah, let me just put it to the side for now. I don't feel like dealing with it. But yeah, but I hear you. Okay, which one's this? All right.
Boxes.
This is the fun half, so we're going to have some fun with this, I guess. Here's Texas State Representative James Tallarico. He's a Democrat. He's in this clip calling out Republican State Representative Stan Gerdes, and he says that this Republican is wasting people's time. And I guess I don't want to even spoil what they're referring to. Let's just go right into it.
Can you name a school where it has been confirmed that students are using litter boxes?
Well, what we do with this bill is we prevent that from happening, but what we don't take out.
Can you name a school where it has been confirmed that students are using litter boxes? This was at the top of your press release. This was mentioned when you introduced this bill, created quite a stir. So I'm asking, can you name a school where it's been confirmed that there are litter boxes being provided to students?
For this purpose, no, I cannot.
Your tweet about this bill was flagged by the app itself under their community notes, and their fact check said sensationalist claims about furries literally behaving as animals and receiving accommodations such as litter boxes have been repeatedly debunked as hoaxes. Is that correct?
It was flagged on, community notes?
Okay. I find it concerning that these types of debunked conspiracy theories are being used by politicians at the highest levels of our government, including in this legislature, who know that they're incorrect. Are you aware that Governor Abbott said, quote, kids go to school dressed up as cats with litter boxes in their classrooms?
Sure.
Are you also aware that when the governor was asked by the Dallas Morning News to name a...
I just want to say the shamelessness of that, sure. Like, sure.
Sure.
And I'm pushing this Furries Act, and I can't name a single fucking school, but we're trying to get out ahead of this. This is demented.
But I don't even understand what the acronym is. Oh, so Forbidding Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education Act. You know, all the furries
Well,
that...
they got the acronym down, so you got to do the act now.
Well, I'm here on the woke East Coast, and every New Jersey school knew that you had your social studies, you had your algebra class, and then you had the sex pest class where everybody dressed up in furry costumes and learned about each other's bodies.
Because of the woke.
So these guys... Let's just be clear. This guy has seen furry porn and is now working backwards from that. Okay, cool.
By the Dallas Morning News to name a single school where this happened, he couldn't. And PolitiFact called this a pants on fire false claim started by online rumors.
Okay.
Do you think it's a good use of our time to write laws based on debunked internet conspiracy theories?
Well, this isn't, this piece of legislation before us covers that, among other things that are true.
My concern is that instead of holding a hearing about student mental health, instead of holding a hearing about school closures across Texas, we are spending precious legislative time toward the end of this legislative session on a bill called the Furries Act. And honestly, Representative Gerdes, this whole thing is just weird and honestly a little creepy. And I think that's the point, because this is all, in my opinion, a manufactured, debunked smear campaign against our Texas public schools. Governor Abbott has used this litter box rumor to paint our schools in the worst possible light.
To voucherize.
He even used the litter box conspiracy theory to push his private school voucher bill. These culture war attacks are nothing more than an effort to discredit our public schools to justify defunding those public schools. Texas librarians are not grooming kids, Texas teachers are not indoctrinating kids, and Texas schools are not providing litter boxes. And I think the most disappointing part about all this is I think you know that.
That's great.
Well said, and that's exactly right. That's what these attacks are on public schools. It's also how they, when they attack teachers as groomers, you use the homophobia, the transphobia as a way to gut our public education system. We're seeing it at the federal level. Trump saying he wants to eliminate the Department of Education. And this is the truth. One of the number one indicators in exit polling, if you voted for Donald Trump, is if you're a lower information voter. They want us not to, Tim Walz was saying this the other day, they don't want an educated proletariat. They want it all to be about, like, if Trump shows up to a WWE show or whatever, like a wrestling match, and he is funny or like is in the news constantly, and that's all you need to know about our politics. You don't need to know that he's cutting our Social Security. You don't need to know that he's giving tax cuts for the rich. You don't need to know that he's actively making your quality of life worse. This helps conservatives. This helps those interests if people are uneducated. It's why since we've all been alive, there's been a war on the arts. There's been the war on the humanities. There's been all of this like, oh, that's such a waste of time. All those pink-haired college kids on campus learning about, our history and slavery and wokeness and stuff like that.
What apartheid is.
They should be focusing on, trades. And they should be working in more of like a capitalist framework. The litter box thing, Joe Rogan was spreading that back in the day.
He said he knew firsthand before. He's like, oh, I was misled by somebody who told me the wrong thing.
He said he knew a teacher in a public school that had seen this happening, or he heard, and then he maybe muddied it. Oh yeah, all the public school teachers that Joe Rogan is chatting with about this kind of thing. It's a Facebook meme that turned into a conspiracy theory in like 2022. And now they're making it into legislation down in Texas. It's not a coincidence. This is happening as they're trying to pass this, like the biggest school privatization bill in the country's history because of Texas's size.
It's intentionally why they're doing it. We had my buddy Chris Leal from Dallas on one of the few times I've sat in Sam's chair talking about explicitly Texas, the state of Friday Night Lights. People love their public schools, particularly in rural areas. All of this stuff, the litter boxes thing, they're teaching you to hate your country thing, they're grooming you thing, all of that was an effort to soften that support so they can privatize this. So what happens? I mean, Tallarico has a good clip on this we played too. But really what vouchers mean is the private schools that parents send their kids to, now those parents get a voucher. So instead of $25,000 a year, it only costs them $15,000. Now, normal people ain't paying $15,000 even if there's a $10,000 voucher. So it's just a subsidy for fucking rich people.
Exactly.
And that's what, and they God damn it, they did it in North Dakota too. And I said this before, but North Dakota has a great public school system. And now all of a sudden, people that want to send their kids, richer parents that want to send their kids to basically soft segregated Catholic schools, they get a tax break on it. And nobody else is going to benefit from it because no one else is going to pay that shit.
Yeah, look, I went to public school until 7th grade, and then I went to an all-girls school, and it was a great education, but it's not something that should have been getting subsidized by the state. And I don't really believe now, as my politics have evolved, that private school should even exist in this country. And that is in part because of conversations that I would hear of like, oh gosh, I'm sending, my daughter to school, with UM or whatever, and we got to pay these high New Jersey taxes for a school that my daughter doesn't even go to. And this is probably every parent had this conversation at the school I went to.
This is submerged. Yeah.
Exactly. But even though the school I went to was the only non-denominational all-girls school in the state, and was like much more liberal. They called us scholar leaders. It was more multicultural than a lot of and different, a higher proportion of Black people than other private schools. Like they made an effort, but you still saw even there how conservative the institution was, and how the parents were resentful of paying taxes to a school their kid wasn't going to. But they were rich enough to afford to send their kid to this school. What is happening in Texas and in North Dakota is gratifying the wishes of those parents. But it's even more insidious because this is about religious schools too.
It's taking money from public schools to give to those parents.
It's granting their wish. Okay, so even though you have the financial means to send your kid, or they're on scholarship, to a private school, you shouldn't have to pay into the public school system to subsidize other kids. You can voluntarily take that back to go to a private institution. This is a way to undercut public education broadly, because if you can opt in and opt out, it means there's no universality. We've said this within the context of Social Security and Medicare. Why are these programs so durable? Why are Republicans always going for Medicaid first? It's because it's not universal. The best protection of any social program is its universality. It's why Medicare for all is such a threat too. It's because if everybody is in it together, like public education too, if everybody is in it together, then people all finally understand what the value is, and it makes it more durable because people accrue this kind of goodwill with it. And like Matt was saying about public schools, we're in this car society. Everybody's in their little suburban fiefdom and all these plots of land. We have no centers of community, even in the city. Everything's privatized except our libraries, basically, and some of our parks. Although you go to Gramercy, you need a damn key to get into that park. But like there's other. Our public spaces are becoming increasingly privatized. In rural areas, public schools are one of the only centers of community that are left. And this is what they're targeting.
And look at what happens when society collapses, like, which that might sound a bit extreme, but it did happen about 5 years ago.
Right.
Where were we coordinating pickup meals for folks? It was their schools.
Yeah.
But now here's the thing, guys. I'm not saying that in the public schools, kids are going to the bathroom in a litter box. I'm not saying that that's happening. But if it was to happen, that would be bad.
That would be bad.
That would be bad. And so,
so
that's all I'm trying to say, y'all.
We need some preemptive legislation on that. First we defund the schools, but then we protect against the imaginary boogeyman. So, do we have to? It's Friday. I'm sorry, Russ. We kept meaning to get to the David Hogg clip, which was really good.
Kind of old news.
It was fun. People should check out that debate between Carville and David Hogg. I mean, Hogg won so much that Carville basically conceded and said he was right at the end, is what I'm hearing.
Basically, yeah, the long and short of it is Carville really talked up a big aggressive game until he was confronted with David Hogg in a conversation, and then he was sort of like, okay, well, look, I agree most of what he said.
All right, guys. Maybe Bobby Dog says they locked up Gramercy Park. I used to live up the street. What is the park in? It may not be Gramercy Park.
There's two private parks in New York City: Gramercy Park.
Yep.
And Sunnyside Gardens Park. Not to dox myself, but somewhat close to where I live.
Gramercy Park has always been locked up since I've been here, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I remember meeting someone who bragged about having that key, and I thought.
Very weird, like when you're walking through Manhattan and you come around. That's a very strange area. It's something different about it.
It's like, I think
it's
like
majestic.
The Upper East and Upper West Side get talked about as like the wealthiest part of Manhattan, but I think Gramercy is kind of like, that's or Tribeca. That's where like a lot of the big money is these days, I think. Even in Brooklyn, like Brooklyn Heights over there is just awash in money. You probably could have, yeah. Anyway, Burger Dude. Some schools may store cat litter in classes as a last resort when they are on lockdown and kids are forced to stay quiet in their classrooms for hours and hours.
You're right, exactly.
That's how it started. Because they had cat litter because kids may have to go to the bathroom if they're locked in the school because there's an active school shooter.
Well, it's kind of woke in its own way.
I don't want to date myself, but when I was a kid, if someone threw up, there was like a gravelly sort of substance. Like if someone puked in class, they would dust it with some sort of. It seemed like kitty litter. I don't know if it was.
Like something to absorb the moisture.
Something to absorb the moisture, and then they would sort of sweep it up.
Yeah.
And Fabby found out later it was giving everybody cancer.
Oh. There's so many just like layers to this particular story of how horrible our society is. Dan from Columbus, the left is full of soft PC police, and also they are tough authoritarians, and it's always the funniest doublespeak that the right tries to do. I recall Alex Wagner calling out Jordan Peterson on Real Time with Donald Trump's new bestie years ago, and JBP short-circuited and probably had to pop a couple benzos after. German leftists. I started working at my local library today. Can I get a shofar? You absolutely can.
That is awesome.
Shapeshifter. Trump saved TikTok. Would vote for him again. MAGA young adult.
I mean, TikTok might not be out of the woods yet. It's kind of a sort of object in this tariff stuff we're dealing with, the trade war.
Yeah. Stephen from Pittsburgh, disappointing with people in your Twitter replies taking a Maximus lib-coded F Giselle position. As far as I can tell, Fetterman is closer to not being one bad day away from I don't want to read this speculation about their family life here. I'm sorry. I appreciate it, Stephen. You're speculating about that there could be some violence. It does sound like a very volatile situation. So, look, as I've said, I'm in a very feminist mind space these days, and I'm thinking about those kinds of situations maybe more than I normally would. But the article goes into it. He bought a gun. He apparently may have injured her in a car accident. And this sounds like a very volatile home situation. So I'm just trying to I don't know. It's Fetterman who I care about here in this situation. Like me here for Matt repeatedly calling right-wing journalists hogs. Throw them in the pen, daddy. Sam Sex House Toasted. Emma playing The Sims is totally in character. Yes. Yep.
Being professional is calling it the Gulf of America.
Right.
Bootlicking losers.
Spaceline, I've been talking to a centrist lib friend for a long time about Gaza and Trump and the whole thing. He's always insistent he sees what is right and wrong. He just has a problem with any expression of it because he's sure it's unpopular among people who he sees as the voters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe a bit of projection.
Maybe.
It's sometimes easier to say other people have a problem with the thing you actually have a problem with.
Between the 1 and 1 and the 5, didn't Socrates say, know thy self-righteousness? Tom Cotton's Beard, you guys should read Omar El Akrad's book. One day everyone will have always been against this. Maybe have him on too. He is just, funnily enough, Russ and I were talking about that yesterday. So we're going to work on that. Groucho Marx says, pretty sure I had ran past Chad Matt in Assassination Coordinates Redacted yesterday. Had 1 second to process, so I just shouted Matt Leck and gave him the finger guns, but he absolutely ignored my ass, planning a right-wing pivot as we speak. Someone saw you on your run, and you didn't see them.
I am listening to music when I'm running. Noise canceling.
But Groucho Marx has called you Chad Matt, so congrats on that.
Thank you for that.
Cole from Little Rock, not talking to anyone and wandering aimlessly. Sounds like he's already practicing for the Shrek role. All right, 3 more. Blair Mountain Enjoyer. Stephen Miller is probably afraid of his own shadow, but only because it's black. Seattle Steve, I'm really loving the new Emma Whoopsie. This Emma soundboard might be the best thing to happen this year. Oh, which one? Which one? Which Whoopsie are you referring to? You mean this one?
Whoopsies!
It's Whoopsies, plural. Woof, as a furry, I can 100% say that we don't go around utilizing litter boxes. Anyone who does that is not doing it because they are a furry. They are doing it because they are in need of mental health counseling. I can't tell if you're joking or not, but, you know, to each their own.
Shout out to the furries in the listenership, right?
I guess, you know, to be honest, Russ, I don't know what I'm endorsing, so I don't know if I can.
Wearing
if they're wearing costumes,
cartoon outfits and hanging out, I guess.
Sure, yeah. If you want to wear cartoon outfits and you want to have sex in cartoon outfits, I mean, more power to you, honestly.
I feel like it might have fell off a little bit, but you don't hear about it as much as you did in like 2019.
It's coming back. Jerry at the Beach. Have you guys heard Kanye's upcoming song, Heil Hitler? Song of the Summer coming up. I have not heard
I heard it last night.
It's a bang.
Mind blowing.
What?
Absolutely.
I believe the lyrics, I haven't committed them all to memory yet, but it's despite the fame, I still can't see my kids. Despite all of the tweets, I still can't see my children.
Oh my God. Well, okay. I'm hold on. I'm finding. So I follow this guy, you know, Jordan Firstman. He's a comedian, and he does like little songs, and he posted one of Kanye's recent ones, and he said, "I'm surprised this wasn't one of his parody ones." Listen to the lyrics of this crap.
Okay.
You don't like that?
No.
Okay.
It's not quite Jesus.
It is depressing because he's completely lost it. Talk about people who've lost their mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my favorite music artists had a kind of similar thing in the 80s. You know who that is?
David Bowie.
David Bowie.
Right. But Bowie, he said that he had that break because of his addiction.
To cocaine, I believe.
Yeah.
So, just
yeah.
Hail Hitler, it doesn't sound any better in auto-tune.
And the final I am of the week. Sax Repair. Man, Russ is an excellent addition to the crew. We're going to leave it like that. All right.
Thank you, guys.
So I'm sorry, but some of the Live, Laugh, Luigi, make it the new Fun Have song. All right. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. Lots of thoughts on okay, I'm sorry. Nazi Dachau camp was in Germany. I didn't mean all of them. Yes.
Dachau,
yeah, Dachau, sorry. All right. That's it. Thank you all so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate all your support. Russ, Matt, Sam, Dorsey, everybody working on the show. Gino. Thanks so much, guys. We will see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive